pretty good.
Do you want us to anywhere in particular?
Wherever you'd like. Do you want to have it on the table ahead, or do you want to?
Sure, there's 6 copies.
Do you want it ahead, or do you want to bring it up during the public hearing?
Doesn't matter, whatever's.
Up to you. Well, it's totally up to you. There is no.
I'll give it.
You know, sometimes you want to introduce it.
Sure.
You can do it. Folks, you're asked to wear the masks just during the meeting, but I think that when you come up here, you can take it off, you know, just if you're comfortable doing so. This is only for this meeting. Our next meeting in June will be masked, if you're vaccinated, according to the CDC. Harris, am I looking for something from that? Okay, it'll come through, I got it, so, I mean, if he sends me something, I'll let you know.
Oh, you have it already?
No, I don't have it yet.
Okay, then just, I should jump a little bit. I'll have it for next week for CBA, I guess.
I got,
You wanted to do it today.
well, I mean,
Yeah, as stated. Not as seen, as stated.
How are you? Good. How are you? Finally announced it. It's good to see you.
Hi, Jackie.
Hello.
Oh, boy, thank you. Wow.
How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Hey,
Nice to see you.
Steve, how you doing?
good.
Hello, Pam.
Hi,
Seems I was about an hour behind you everywhere I went today.
Oh, yeah?
I can hardly lift this.
Get out from there.
Russ wasn't gonna make it, but Mary Ann has to make it to have a quorum.
Did you hear
I have
from her?
not heard from her. I'm gonna email her right now.
Listen, if you have dinner, eat it raw. Don't look at it too long. So next month is gonna be the same as this month.
There's a lot of stuff in there.
Yes, how many people have been vaccinated? I know. And if everybody has, we can take our medicine.
Hey, so Russ, he hurt his back, but where was Kirk?
He wasn't here last month either.
That's right.
Well, he said it was gonna be harder for him because of his new job, so
Right.
maybe it is gonna be too hard for him.
Well, Russ is hurt. Russ is hurt.
Russ hurt his back or something.
Yeah.
He sent an email.
Oh, he is.
Right. He's not that, he's just busy. He hurt his back.
Oh, dear.
Didn't want to sit still for,
His back is,
Yeah, that was, he sent an email.
but that's how they do this Zoom thing.
Yeah, they're streaming it with this, she said that they're doing. When I came this afternoon, they were setting it up.
Wonder if we could have done it from home.
We? You'd have trouble getting a volume to work. We. Just a note to those of you in the audience, we're waiting for a fifth member so that we have a quorum and we can begin. We know two people are not going to be here tonight, so Mary Ann Marino is the key. So just be patient.
This is a minor waiver, I think.
how long do we wait still?
Forever.
Can she chime in, like, can she participate virtually or not?
Yeah, she was. Yeah, she was.
No, I mean, can she? For
Say
this?
it again?
Can she participate virtually?
No, we're not set up.
Oh, okay, okay.
Otherwise, Kurt could have called, Russell could have called in. So Pam, if I email you pictures, can you get it up on the screen?
Yeah, I mean, I should print them to make them available for,
Here we go.
Picture.
Somebody's showing up. Is that Mary Ann?
yep. Yay! Once you get settled, give her a second.
I'd like to call the Inland Wetlands Watercourse meeting to, meeting of May 19th, 2021. It is 7:05 PM. Attendance-wise, Steve Molinelli, Chairman, present. Russell Davenport, absent excused. Jackie Mulvey,
Present.
Andrea Kowicki,
Present.
Jeff Lippincott, Mary Ann Marino,
Present.
Kurt Timoney, absent excused, and we have two vacancies on the board. I'd like to have someone make a recommendation to approve the minutes from the April meeting.
So moved.
So moved. Any changes to it? Is there a second?
I'll second.
Thank you. All in favor of approving the minutes as written? Unanimous? Under agenda review,
Steve, just before you get going, the town manager had requested that I inform the public who may be viewing the meeting via live stream on YouTube or at home through cable 194, that while we're live streaming the meeting, in order to participate, you unfortunately do have to be here in attendance. You know, the doors are open and, you know, you're free to attend. But in the meantime, we're still making our meetings available through YouTube and Channel 194, but participation is limited to only in-person folks.
thank you. Under agenda review, I'd like to start with the last thing first and the first thing first. My sense is that this meeting will not be able to conduct all of its business based on the length of the agenda. We will look to start the last applicant's agenda no later than 10:15. So depending upon how quickly the meeting goes, we'll look to conclude the meeting to the best of our ability, but there's a lengthy agenda and there's a lot of detail in the applicants. So just be aware that it may be that we don't reach everybody's item tonight. I'd like to be sure that we deal with warnings and violations. And Pam, for our sake, what's the rule in terms of applicants or submitting an application to you? What's the deadline?
By statute, they make the agenda automatically if they are in the night before, 24 hours ahead of the meeting, so by 4 on Tuesday preceding the meeting. To gain the commission's favor, that's what I communicate typically, is that you folks like to have the documents on over the weekend to review, so if they can, and because we close at noon on Fridays, I generally ask that they get here by 6 p.m. on Thursday night. They get here, you know, first couple hours of the morning on Friday, it's okay, but, you know, there's some administrative paperwork.
Sure.
So really, Thursday, 6 p.m., you come in Friday morning, you know, you're
Thank
still
you.
going to be okay to make the package. But much beyond that, you don't make the package, but you will make the agenda.
And just by example, last month we had 3 items that Pam just described, and we simply accepted it without any comment. So it really behooves the applicant to present it to Pam in a timely manner so that when we do accept it, and that's the procedure, the first meeting we tend to accept, the second meeting we look to adjudicate the matter. If we have it in a timely manner where we have a packet and paper and we can look at and visit, then there'll be more detail. If not, the likelihood is you're going to be accepted and nothing else, no action taken. So just be aware of that. Anybody else for anything under agenda review? Okay, first we're going to have a public hearing on inland wetlands application 20-62. The applicant is Sherwood Dawson.
No, that one's continued.
It's continued.
Yep.
Do we need to make a motion to continue it or just
No,
it's automatic?
it's noted.
Okay,
If you want, I'll read the legal notice for the public hearings you do have before you this evening.
okay.
Winchester Inland Wetlands and Watercourses Commission notification of public hearing. Notice is hereby given that the Winchester Inland Wetlands and Watercourses Commission will hold a public hearing at their regular meeting on Wednesday, May 19, 2021 at 7 p.m. to be held in person at Winchester Town Hall, 338 Main Street, second floor, P. Francis Hicks Room, to act on the following applications. A, IWWC 2058, applicant owner Sean Stanziel. Location 504 East Wakefield Boulevard, proposal boat lift, jet ski lift, swim, float, and dock. B, IWWC 2109, applicant owner Michael Gonsalves and Desiree Gonsalves. Location 524 East Wakefield Boulevard, proposal install dock and boat lift. C, IWWC 2114, applicant owner Harris Daigle, location 304 East Wakefield Boulevard, proposal raise and remove existing cottage, rebuild 3-bedroom residence with covered deck and steps and related site work, including walkways, drainage, and landscaping. At this hearing, interested persons may appear and be heard, and written communications will be received. Copies of the above application are on file for public inspection at the Planning and Community Development Office dated Winchester, Connecticut, this 5th day of May, 2021. Stephen Molinelli, Chairman. This was published in the Republican American on May 9th, 2021, and May 13th, 2021. For the record, I have certificate of mails on serving as evidence that the abutting property owners were provided notice of the public hearing on each of these 3 applications.
Thank you. And to reflect on my memory, my understanding is we separated that application into 2 parts, and we approved the construction phase of the application. but
Which
we-
one are you talking about?
But we didn't do anything with the waterfront.
So is that the first one on Sean? Stands at
Stanziale.
504?
That's what we're doing now?
Yes, so that wasn't mentioned because that had already been approved.
Right, okay. Is there a representative from Mr. Stanziali's, Mike?
For the record, my name is Mike Sherman. I'm a licensed professional engineer in the state of Connecticut. And Sean Scanziali has hired me to prepare a site plan for his project. So what I've got up here, I colored in the existing dock so you could clearly see what was there before we started our project. The issue that came up at the last meeting was the fact that the littoral line was so close to the existing dock. And the other issue that came up at the meeting was the fact that the existing dock was 58 and change feet from the shoreline. So what Sean would like to do to bring his dock into compliance colored version somewhere here. There we go. Sean would like to install a jet ski lift, relocate his boat lift, add a swim float, and to bring his dock into compliance, he has shortened it till it'll be 40 feet from the shoreline. And we're counting the shoreline as existing seawall. In our very first application, we measured the existing dock out from the jetty, which we were looking at as if that were the shore of the lake.
Oops. That's not.
I have too much weight on this. One of the questions we were wrestling with at
Mike,
the last meeting.
Mike, you want to flip that over?
Upside down.
Thank you.
Being upside down, we're oriented on the way. Looking at it from the sky.
Thank you.
When we counted our aggregate length of the docks, this came up because Sean, in order to shorten his dock, he has 4-foot by 16-foot sections. He just wants to take one down and pull it close to the shore and put it against the other one. So instead of having a 4-foot wide dock, he now has an 8-foot wide dock. And ending that at 40 feet, and put the boat lift right next to it. And we came up with an aggregate length of dock at 33 feet or 75, which comes out to be 40-something%. But the question that came up was, hey, how come you're not counting the jet ski lift? And we didn't count that because the swim float was 15 feet wide and the jet lift was only 11 feet wide. And we figured the swim float blocked it. Just like if you had a wider dock and a boat lift behind it, you would count the whole boat lift twice, and the dock. And so, we were waiting for a clarification from the town attorney, which I guess we did not get. So we'll have to do this meeting without that. So what we're looking for is a variance on the littoral boundary, because we're closer than 10 feet to it. And this is pretty much what the existing condition was, and Sean's talked to his neighbors, and they're okay with him leaving it where it was with the new dock. But we need a variance from you folks.
It wouldn't be a variance, it would be an interpretation. They can't, this commission can't grant variances, so it wouldn't be a variance, it would be interpreting the ordinance to be,
Would be an exception?
To
Nope.
allow,
Nope.
to allow for the littoral boundary to be violated.
Pam, you gave us the ordinances.
yeah, so
prior to the
the
meeting.
ordinance allows, allows structures to encumber that 10-foot, littoral boundary, but only after a public hearing.
And here we are.
So here we are.
So you're not contesting that aspect of it, in terms
No.
of, okay. Mike, how wide is the property from boundary to boundary from, on the waterfront?
Well, when the surveyor measured it, he measured every nook and cranny here, and actually even measured up inside the staircase and back, and he came up with 78 feet. The number that I wrote on the plan was, I just went from property pin to property pin, a straight line, and 75.3. So that's the number that I used for computing our aggregate length, because the aggregate length is supposed to be parallel to the shoreline.
Correct. And so does all of the apparatuses that are in the water are parallel to the shoreline, whether they're one in front of the other, behind another, or not. They're all parallel to the shoreline. So where you're contesting or contending that the jet ski lift is parallel to the trampoline or whatever is out there is one measurement. Both of them are parallel to the shoreline, and the ordinance says they're treated separately.
I didn't. I think the ordinance says combined distance, doesn't it?
No.
How's it?
You have the ordinance,
Exact
Jackie?
wording on that.
Go ahead, can you read it into the record?
The ordinance says,
They use the word aggregate distance.
the aggregate width as measured parallel to the shorefront, all structures, objects together per property, including those not attached to shore, shall not exceed 50% of the property's shorefront, or a maximum of 50 linear feet, whichever is less. A property having a shorefront of 250 feet or more may be allowed a maximum coverage of 70 linear feet.
You have 37 and a half linear feet to work with.
Yes, yeah.
And what do you have?
Not counting the jet ski lift, because it's in the shadow of the swim float, that puts us at 33 feet.
But the
So
swim float
if we added
puts
that
you
11
over.
feet, we would be
Over.
44 feet, still less than 50, but that would be over 50%.
Yeah.
And it's whichever is more restrictive than variance.
Pam, you feel there's some room for interpretation in this rule?
Well, he just said it, you know, like, I thought that the swim float, I mean, it'd be like counting the 10 by 10, it's 10 by 10 here, right? It'd be like a 10 by 10 swim float at the end of a 6-foot dock. You would only be counting 10 feet in the aggregate. You wouldn't be counting 16.
So the dock and the boat lift together are how much?
18 feet. gonna be 8 plus 10 for the width.
When we brought this up last month, I think if you moved it behind the boat lift, next to the dock on the shoreline, that should suffice.
Sean would be willing to do that if that's
Oh, it'd be just
what
like
it takes to get
why you
us
had the
approved.
boat
He's
lift
just
there.
concerned about the circulation in there, getting the jet skis in.
Let's go step by step. The dock that's going out into the water, under our rules, should fall into compliance when you attempt to do something with that dock. So you have a 20-some-odd foot pier going out, correct?
Yeah.
You did major work renovating that pier this winter. You put a 4-inch cap on top of it, made a sidewalk, so to speak, on top of it. That should have come before the commission for a judgment. I think we were silent, you were silent on that. And as a result of your application for the house and for what you're asking for now, when commissioners visited your site, that's what we found, okay? Clearly, it's in violation of the littoral boundary, which is pre-existing also, okay? How much more dock did you put out beyond the concrete pier?
16 feet plus 2, 18 feet.
In
We
to-
brought it in, so it was exactly 40 from the shoreline.
Okay, so you used the 20-some-odd feet of the pier
Yeah.
and made the difference up to 40.
Yeah,
And then you put a boat lift adjacent to that.
yeah.
Okay. So the pier is what, 4 feet wide?
I think it's 6 feet wide. Get my scale.
I don't think it's 6 feet wide.
No, it's not that wide.
No, it's not. Let's assume it's 4 feet wide.
Yeah, it's like 4 feet, 3 inches.
Okay, and then you have a 10-foot wide boat lift?
Yeah.
So you're looking at 14 feet, give or take a little bit?
The boat lift isn't.
No, because the
total-
dock float is wider than 4 feet.
I meant the,
It'll be 18 if you add the dock section and the boat lift together.
so the two of them are approximately 14 feet? Oh, no, you added a piece to the dock also.
So right
On
now,
the plan
the
in
way,
front of you, it scales at 4 feet.
That's what we thought.
And the edge of that pier is 5.3 feet off the littoral boundary.
the dock, when I purchased them, the dock had theoretically 3 16-foot by 4-foot sections. 2 were in a row and 1 was on the side. I'm looking to take 1 16-foot section to shorten the whole thing and pull it up against my jetty. So that would put me into the.
But you want to take one of the 4-foot sections and put it parallel to walk out, to the extension, so to speak.
Yeah, so, right, so that it would be, what I'm adding to the jetty is the 2 16-foot sections that are 4 feet wide. So that would make it a total of 8 feet, and then you have your.
Boat lift.
Yeah.
So you have 8 feet and the boat lift is 10 feet?
Yeah,
So now you have 18 feet,
yeah.
okay? The jet ski lift is how wide?
That's 11 feet wide, the way we have it positioned.
So 18 and 11 is 29. And then the trampoline is,
15.
so clearly you're over the 50% rule.
If you cannot use, meeting with Mark, we still believe that it's as long as you're going congruent straight out, that was the
I-
rule
I-
that.
They're separate
I don't think we can
structures.
interpret it that way, because they're separate structures. Like on a dock, it's fixed, right? On these structures, they're not fixed. So it would mean that any homeowner, I'm not saying you would or not, but any homeowner could then move it, right?
Would a mooring do that? So if someone had a mooring and they had their boat, would that count, and their boat swung sideways and it's 18 feet, would that?
Mooring would have to be approved by the commission, so
Yeah.
then we'd have to
Yeah.
review that.
But if I was to present a mooring, would you take that mooring away from the frontage that someone could have? Because that would theoretically be the same, right?
Not really, not really. I mean, the mooring is a ball a foot wide, give or take.
Yeah, and there.
You know, you're proposing a 15-foot wide trampoline.
The ordinance also designates whether or not you can have a buoy based on how many other structures you have. So that would have to just come before us as a separate application.
How much are we missing by?
Well, if we
What is
add
the
the jet
shoreline?
lift in
75.
separately, you're at 58%. On the shorefront coverage.
How many feet?
That would be 44 feet
And you're allowed 37.
and a half.
Do you need that second width on the, where you're attaching your boat lift?
That's what I was thinking. Just don't put that second section in and knock 4 feet off of it.
I think Sean wants the little wider area at the end here so you could comfortably put up a couple chairs, deck chairs.
I know, it still wouldn't get you
Do-
It's closer.
44 to, I know, but you can't, no, you get, like, you'd have to, you can't give an
If the
extent.
jet ski dock moved up against the jetty though, would we be counting the, boat lift that wouldn't add? the boat lift?
It's parallel to the shoreline.
Okay.
That's what we're going by.
But it's, if the jet ski lift is behind the boat lift, what do you do then? Are you counting both the width of the jet ski lift
That's-
and the,
Where's the,
Yeah, because they're both parallel to the shoreline. It's the same.
Yeah, because it's a
It's
so it'd
separate,
be, again, you would find that it's separate?
yeah, because
Yes.
it's a separate structure and it
Separate
could be moved at any time. And
Well, I mean,
be taken out of
a lot of
compliance.
times, all of it is movable,
Right,
right?
but the point is,
it's a separate structure.
it's a separate, if they were pulled apart, then the whole situation would be out of compliance. They're not fixed.
If we move the jet ski structure over to the existing jetty, it'll be completely in the shadow of the,
Doesn't
Mike, it
matter.
doesn't matter.
It's the same,
It's
it's the
parallel
same
to the
problem.
So long as it's in the water, wherever you position it, it's gonna get measured.
So, just so that I understand, so, but what you're saying about each separate structure is attributable to a jet ski lift, a boat lift, not a buoy, because we count a buoy as what, 1 foot, so we don't count the width of a buoy?
We
Could
haven't,
You know, like, I mean, if we're close,
Yeah.
it could be,
Yeah, it
but,
could be a
but it
factor.
would count the jet ski lift and a boat lift and say a trampoline, but it does not apply to a swim float located at the end of the dock, and I just wanna,
The swim,
Because
no,
it's-
it does apply to a swim
It
float
does.
at the end of the dock. We
It's-
wouldn't take if there's a 10-foot swim float at the end of a 4-foot dock,
what's the, what are you
10
counting?
foot, we would
10.
count the
But
10
it's
foot.
because it's fixed, Pam.
Is that everyone's understanding, cause it's fixed, that's why the
Yeah.
swim platform's only
Yeah.
10?
Yeah.
Okay, okay. Okay,
I mean, typically, we've always looked at the waterfront as separate parallel parcels to the land. You were creative in saying one is stacked behind the other, so only count it once. The ordinance says any structure attached or not attached to the water, to the land, is considered parallel and counted.
How many feet were you out?
What's that?
How many?
They're out 40 now. They're bringing it back to compliance along those lines.
Yeah, but no, the width,
Right.
how many feet are we over the 50%?
Oh, I don't know. What's,
6.5, I think.
He is allowed 37 and a half, and this would make it 44.
you were gonna say something?
So 7.5 feet.
Yeah.
Because you couldn't get a smaller trampoline.
I already purchased it. The, what if the town attorney sees it differently? Does that?
You know, I think,
Was that?
I'm gonna respond individually.
Yeah.
He's going to give us his legal opinion. I think the commission will take it into consideration. and I don't necessarily think he may be right if you decide with you. But having said that, you know, we can continue this and wait for his decision, because it was requested, if you'd like, or we can make a decision.
I'd like to be able to use the water, and I'd like to be able to use, you know, my waterfront, so I want to be, like, theoretically, I'm not, my dock is not within, it's not a permanent dock, so I really don't have a situation. I've kept everything out of the water to make sure that I.
Yeah,
follow the
and we
rules.
appreciated that.
So I'd like to, the new homeowner, I want to use it. So is there any way to take the jets, I don't know, it almost,
I think you're left with the choice of putting one, either the trampoline or the jet ski or the boat lift. One of them has to come out to bring you into compliance.
or is there any way to get very close and take one jet ski dock out? So that would reduce it by 5 feet and I'm almost.
There's 2 jet skis?
No, it must be a
Well, the
double
shape-
jet ski.
The shape of it, you know.
It's a double jet ski.
Well, it's 10 feet, so, if I did a single one, now I'm really close.
How wide is a single?
5 feet?
Okay.
Yeah, give or take a few, you know, I mean, it's not 10 feet anymore.
Not for nothing, you still couldn't do it, because you'd still be at 39.
Yeah, I think
We know
you'd then have
that,
to
but
try to
he's
I
asking,
know, but you.
take the 2.5 feet off from
Then
your
you could take 4
dock
feet
if
off
you
the
haven't
dock.
finished it yet.
I don't
If
think.
you
we
made a
can.
physical connection with a ski lift to the jetty,
No, because
then
they're
would connect?
still separate structures.
How about remove the second 16-foot section to reduce your dock width to 4 feet and go to a 1 jet ski?
Yeah, that's what I was just suggesting.
That would do it.
Yep.
Yeah, it's just a minute dock. I think that.
So you could take public comment as you mull it over.
and you know,
Give you
you
a
can
couple
ask for
minutes.
us not to make a decision tonight, and I think we have time.
Yeah.
But I know you want to use the waterfront also. Yeah, I'm just trying to,
I get the sense of the decision, so I'm trying to process it.
We can't just approve the dock and boat lift and then wait.
No,
and
because
see.
Well,
you
then you
can't make
can't-
any approval until you close a public hearing, and if any of it is gonna be within the littoral boundaries, then you have to have a public hearing.
Yeah.
So I guess I gotta get rid of the jet ski dock and it is what it is. There's no other option. I don't own the jet ski dock right now. I just
Oh.
wanna have jet skis. So I don't have a reasonable option, so.
You could get some whips for your dock and just dock your boat next to the dock.
Yeah, I mean, listen, you know,
I've drunk from experience.
$100,000 boat, I just wanna keep it, out of the water if I could, you know, so. The things I do have, I guess, I guess that's the most important thing to, apply.
just for your information, there's nothing to say that down the road, a year or next 2 years from now, in your mind, you want your waterfront to look different, you can come back and come before the commission again and tell us what you're taking out and what you're putting in.
Very rarely do you get more things given to you in the future, you won't usually.
Well, no, you would,
lose things, right?
what I'm saying to you is, if you want to take your trampoline out because you feel you don't have a need for it and put a double jet ski lift in,
Yep.
then you can come back to us. This is not, you know, written in stone that your future is closed.
Understood, yeah.
That's all, that was my point. I'm just trying to make it more palatable, I guess, for you to accept, if that's the right way to say it, but, you know, our hands are tied with this.
Understood. So I guess we'll close without the jet ski dock.
Okay?
So we're looking to get approved with the condition that we don't put the jet ski lift in.
And the positioning of the trampoline will stay where it is? Again, because of the littoral boundary. You could,
Yeah, if the
you
board
could- you
has
could-
any suggestions, I mean, I plan to keep it where it is.
well, so long as it doesn't go into the littoral boundary, you have leeway in there.
Yep. I would like to keep it going.
Okay.
Known as the jet ski dock.
Are there anything from the other commissions at this point? Being this is a public hearing, is there anybody would like to add or say something regarding this application? Yes?
Yes,
You want to come forward and just introduce yourself?
thank you. I was wondering if I could just look at the,
You just gotta state your name and address for the record, please.
it's John Holland, and I'm the next door neighbor of Sean. And so we're using the littoral boundary on both sides, is that correct?
Say it again?
We're using the littoral boundary on both sides. We're measuring it that way.
The property has two littoral boundaries, yes.
15 feet off from the one side. For 5.3 feet at the end of the concrete jetty and 9.7 at the end of the.
Yes. My only concern is, I don't think that's a bad idea, but just living there for many years, that corner, you have other people here who I don't know whether they're gonna speak up or not. And whether they speak up or not, I'm still gonna say that. I think it's gonna be pretty crowded in that area, especially the new dock comes in. And then there's the other neighbors there sitting next to me, the Beckers, that may be a problem to them. And then I don't know who's on the other side of Mr. Becker now, somebody else bought the house. And, if you put all their pieces into the water, it's gonna be a pretty big, puzzle over there. And, I'm just wondering if we should just look at the whole thing, if we have an idea of what the whole thing's gonna look like.
Can't look at the whole
I know
cove
that.
with this application.
Right, I know. So, that's the thing that just sits in the back of my mind. But other than that, as long as we're using the littoral boundary, I don't think I have a problem on my side, because Randy's dock, the former owner, was always on my side of the property, when you just measured it like that.
So, just to summarize and be sure of what you're stating, he's violating your littoral boundary,
Yes,
and you're not in opposition to that?
that's correct.
Okay.
The only thing is, I don't really agree with the way the littoral boundaries work, but when I purchased the place back in the 50s, I don't think they were in existence, and then you went out straight out, and that's the way I feel that we should have it in. But obviously, that's not the case.
Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner.
You're welcome. Anybody else? Mary? Want to come up front?
I don't have anything really to say as far as all this littoral boundary stuff is, and it seems like it's a lot of, I first want to say I appreciate everything that everybody here does, because you're up late at night, and I just wondered, all these things that you're asking for, what is the reason for it?
The ordinance.
But the ordinance is for a purpose, right? And is it to protect the lake, or, and specifically, can somebody tell me what that is? Because I didn't know that, because we're talking about all these laws, and there is a lake to think about, and there's people on the lake also that live there to think about, and there's safety to think about, and I just wanted to know I'd just like to know, like to get the bigger picture of what is the ordinance, what are they for? I'm not saying that they're wrong, I just don't know what they're for.
Any ordinance is designed to protect what it talks to. Our ordinance is designed to protect the waterfronts of individual homeowners and the cumulative use of homeowners. And we're obligated to follow the language of the ordinances. There are situations like this littoral issue where the commission has some degree of flexibility in interpreting it, and some things are very clear.
Okay, so that means that by protecting somebody's waterfront, what that means protecting like what you can do there, or is it protecting that this is my line and this is his line, and don't dare come over to my line, or I don't want your things on my property, is that what it is?
All of
Mostly
those,
that?
yes, yes.
And also, does it have anything to do with protecting, if I'm gonna, like, water ski or something, and I have to, come into my dock, like my safety or other people's safety? Is it nothing to do with that, probably, right? Because that's not your
No.
job.
The only
I
thing,
think-
go ahead, I'm sorry.
I think, you really said it's all of the above. I think the ordinances, as best as they could, were trying to make things safer, to protect the shoreline from erosion by too much traffic. I mean, I think that's what, I don't agree with all the ordinances, but they were made in good faith to try to protect us against blight on a shoreline, where it's just this jam-packed shoreline that isn't very nice.
So in essence, it would be, in my mind, from what you're saying, am I correct in saying that it's so that everybody that comes there, that lives there, can kind of like get along together and without all this.
Or,
So section 4C.
And also,
whoever uses the water. People have rights to use the water because you don't own your water and I don't own my water. The boat launch allows people from wherever to launch their boat and utilize the water. And you made reference to, does it impact on water skiing? If, by example, somebody's pier were out 60 or 70 feet, and it impacted on navigation in a particular area, and that pier was out from 30 years ago, we're silent on it. The applicant comes in and wants to do work on that pier, we're gonna make them pull it back to 40 feet.
Because there's more people and the lake is.
No, because we now have the right to ask them to pull it back or tell them to pull it back. So if they're silent and don't request anything, they can keep their 60, 70 feet because it was allowed prior to the ordinance. Once the ordinance came into existence, then everybody had to comply. You can't comply with something that pre-existed. That's why.
So then I just wanted to know that I appreciate what you're doing, and, because it's really for all of us, and I wanna also, this is just a comment, which you don't have to really.
Can you just
Because
talk to
some-
that, because we're running
I
out of
just
time,
wanna
just
say
talk to,
sometimes I've noticed, go back,
no, we're running late, so if you're gonna say
Yeah,
something
I know.
regarding this application, that's what we're here for.
well, this is, well, okay, but this won't take long.
Okay.
All right, that I just think that you look at it, also think about, sometimes less is more. I mean, sometimes you don't have to have everything to have a good time, we want what these things, maybe you ought to think about, not everybody, not just me too. Think about that sometimes the things you really drive to get are maybe not the things that end up making your time at the lake so great.
Thank you.
See, if I read a note on this
Go ahead.
ordinance. So it says here in the application requirements section, it says, in carrying out the intent of this ordinance to reduce congestion around the lake shore, eliminate littoral boundary disputes among neighbors, avoid navigational hazards and impediments, and impediments to ingress and egress to the shore. The commission shall take into consideration all the relative facts and circumstances in making its decision on any application for a permit, including but not limited to. So that's the reason for it, that's the intent of the
Yeah.
ordinance.
Okay, thank you. Any other public comments? May I have a motion? I'm sorry, go ahead, Jan.
Hi, I'm Jen Bergen at 378 East Wakefield Boulevard, and just being in a position of being a neighbor, and in a position where you can't say something because you want to get along with your neighbors, I think we're all looking to you to help resolve these issues and be strong, and so I think everybody wants every single toy and every single dock, and at some point, someone has to say, like, slow down, and so I just thank you for being here, and I brought my sleeping bag because I'm last on the application, so I'm ready for
You can
later.
go home now, you can go home now, say
All
you.
right, thanks.
Anybody? May I have a motion to close the public hearing?
So moved.
Second? Okay, to close the public hearing. Okay, guys, thank you very much. We have another public hearing in the Wetlands Commission, application 21-09. The applicant is Michael and Desiree Gonzalez at 524 East Wakefield Boulevard, and the proposal is to install a dock and boat lift. Well, Pam, you want to read anything into the record?
No, I read the legal notice.
Or for
and-
everything?
Yep.
So that's done once, we're
Yep,
done.
Yep.
Okay,
So, we are applying for a dock and lift at a home improvement lot, surveyed. It's been confirmed to be one contiguous piece of land, hockey stick-like in shape. From East Wakefield Boulevard to Highland Lake is described in the deeds and depicted in 27 map. The survey and map are included in your packets for review. I've also included an unvandalized copy of the original map in my packet. There are actually two originals on town records. One of them hasn't been written all over it. Town field card has been updated to show the size of the property to be 1.17 acres. As you know, that's larger than many lots with cottages. I've included a copy of the field card for the board. It's in the packet. I had a map drawn by Peter Keefe that includes the littoral boundaries and placement of the dock and the lift. Westerly, we're graded 7 feet from our neighbors, the Lachances. On the easterly littoral boundary, we share with ourselves at 522. We're about a foot off and give ourselves permission to encroach on that, but not cross that boundary. This situation commonly arises, as we just saw. It is commonly accepted if the neighbor is agreeable, which I am. The dock has been placed over the rocks on the easterly side of the property so as not to obstruct any access to the lake and give us an easy way to get over to the other side of our property. I have come off, I have also reduced the width and the length of the dock to stay inside the littoral boundaries because the cove method, it kind of cuts in. It really shouldn't, because honestly, there's a straight line from my boundary with Sean all the way 3-4 properties up. But for whatever reason, I'm using the cove method on something that's a directly straight line. But even with that, by pulling the dock back, making it less wide, I was able to stay within those littoral boundaries. And it'll still give us plenty of depth to get the boat up on the lift. So I included in the packet the manufacturer's specs on the docks, pretty common, one of the more common ones.
That's it?
For now.
Oh, okay. Commissioners, questions? Well, you commissioners are looking, I have a few questions I'd like to entertain, to be entertained. The area where you're proposing to put this dock and lift
Yeah.
is property that's, you're claiming as part of that right-of-way easement from East Wakefield Boulevard perpendicular to your driveway, correct?
Well, it's actually L-shaped.
I mean, well, okay, that's the contention now.
Oh, it's
Okay.
surveyed. Town record has it.
I'm looking at the O'Keefe land survey
Yep.
that you provided,
Yep.
and if I'm reading it correctly, and I don't know if I am, but I think I am, it indicates that that right-of-way is 20 feet wide, and it begins on East Wakefield Boulevard and goes in 250 feet. And at that point, it ends. Is that correct?
No. I'll read from you some other descriptions.
Go ahead.
So back, I think it was from 13 to 16 approximately, there was some disagreements with the neighbors. And the Superior Court of Litchfield brought the situation to an agreement. A certain right-of-way that begins at East Wakefield Boulevard is an initially 20 feet wide in width, travels in a westerly direction, and is situated northerly of lots 112 and 128 to 133. After which, the right-of-way is of varying widths, travels in a northerly direction, and is situated just westerly of lot 138. Also, my deed for the property describes it as going from East Wakefield Boulevard to Highland Lake. right, in the original deed, all the way back. Also, take a look at my map. If you go to your packet, there's a copy of the map. It's kind of a dark,
Is this the map you're referring to?
area of an arrow.
Oh, okay.
It's a copy of the town map. This is in your
Yeah, I
packet,
saw that.
Right? Tell me if, just, you know, if those two look similar. What does that look like? There's no lines on that town map, the 1927 map. That's the master map of everything on the lake. The deed describes it to the street, from the street to the lake. The court describes it that way. The map looks that way. That's the way it is.
Yeah. Doesn't show the.
Let them so they both face in the same direction. So it lines up exactly.
This is the
Just
yellow.
make sure that you speak into the microphone so that the record picks up all the conversation. Sorry, but in case this
Okay.
goes to trial and it gets, you know, it gets litigated, there's gonna be a transcript and we have to pick up every sound.
Well, again, I don't know if the deed that you, the survey that you provided by Mr. Keefe's land surveying dated
November
May 5th,
2011.
2021.
20, excuse me.
Pardon?
2020, I apologize.
Yeah, May 5th, 2021.
Yeah.
And what it describes at that point, and it doesn't describe an L-shaped land, it says that the end of the 20 by 250 foot right-of-way.
What's that? You saying that this survey does not say that?
It does say that,
It says what?
that at the 250-foot mark, there's a
So
pin.
right of way is an area over which you can pass.
I'm
Okay?
just telling you
Right.
what
It's
I'm,
not a piece of land.
I'm telling you how I'm interpreting
You may.
this,
There's also
this
dashed lines.
survey.
How do you close a line on a survey? What kind of line do you use?
Anything you want. There's a line that says that it's the end of 20 by 250 foot right-of-way.
A solid
And there's a
line.
dotted line.
A solid line is used to,
Okay.
close, you know, I'm just saying.
Yeah.
Solid line is used to close a line on a survey. A dashed line is used, and I actually have an email that went to everybody describing. That does not close a boundary on a line, okay? That's,
I think the dashed line indicates the start of the easement.
I believe it does too. Thank you. I believe it's actually the end of the easement. In real life, I believe if you went back to what it was originally intended to, that the right of way for others to use really is only that 20 by 250. That's not what I'm contending, and it doesn't matter what I believe or what was original, because with one party there's an agreement, and with the other party there's an agreement with the previous owner. They now, by the way, that agreement with the previous owner, the only reason that house sold, you're the one that's in real estate, right?
Nope.
Or someone, the only reason that house sold is because of that agreement. Because the agreement with Whitley solidified or restated or whatever you want to say, that property's right to use, to pass and repass on that right of way, right? So now, this narrative, again, is that, oh no, that piece of property, that doesn't go with it. We're paying, it's assessed at $28,000. It is clearly assessed with the assumption that it's waterfront property. The deed to it says that it goes from the street to the lake. To exclude that line is a stretch, and I'll take that to any court. To exclude that line from a deed, for anyone to attempt to do that, is a huge stretch. And I welcome that challenge. And I'm not asking for it, but for someone to try to exclude that statement from a deed, they're gonna have a high hurdle to cross, I believe.
I think what we're trying to do is establish your right, or not your right, to put a dock in the land that touches the water that you claim is part of that right-of-way easement. And
So the town
That's the
attorney,
purpose of the public hearing, to determine that.
the town attorney said that I have all rights of ownership. I believe that among the questions you guys gave him, you questioned what rights I do have. To some extent,
I don't think that his letter to us says that, actually.
Okay.
I
The
think,
owner-
can I just bottom line it here?
Yeah.
If we can't establish that he's the owner of the property, we can't approve this. And I think that somebody who has the legal authority to establish ownership needs to establish
I
the
think-
ownership.
The town has. The town has on record that I own it. I pay the taxes. It's been surveyed. They have the land records to include all of the land that's been surveyed. The town is.
I guess
right behind you.
we need
You guys are on
something
a town
from the,
board.
I wouldn't feel comfortable unless the assessor.
I think our obligation, because it's a public hearing, is to ask questions and raise issues and concerns that we have, and then allow the public to speak to it, because
include the assessor.
my guess is there are people here that may bring forth challenging information
Right.
for us to consider as part of this public hearing also. So that's our purpose of a public hearing.
I believe I included a data card for you guys.
A what?
The data card,
From the assessor.
the town assessor's website, she's the one that updated the data card. I mean, it was literally updated, what, 4 weeks ago, 5 weeks ago, something like that.
Yeah. Just to address your note about, our letter from Kevin Nelligan dated April 12th, 2021 does
Yeah.
not state that you're the owner of the property. We didn't
No,
ask that
that's-
question.
That's not what I suggested.
Oh, okay, well then maybe I misheard you. I thought that's
Okay.
what you said.
No. You said, whether the owner of a property that is subject to a right-of-way and has been paying taxes on it, has more rights than someone else who has rights to the same right-of-way. His response was, the owner of a property over which an easement crosses retains full ownership of the property. Their ownership is only limited by the terms of the easement. This easement is for someone to pass and repass over that land. It is stated time and time again in agreements on more than one side of the aisle, on every single legal document that you guys have right at your access describes it as such. The right to pass and repass, whether with a vehicle, whether with a body, whether with a recreational vehicle, a boat or a raft. That's what right exists. That's been dictated by the court. We don't, it's not none of our place to question that. Anyone, there's two people that can question. They can file a motion to open that case back up. And if it keeps at this pace, that's where we'll end up. Because they're the ones who enforce it. My reading of it is, I've had plenty of people look at how I read that agreement. And I'm not looking for a fight, but you can't stomp all over somebody else's land. And think that, that's not what a right of way is. A right of way is not an extension of your property for you to use as you please. It is the ability to cross over that land to get to the land, to get to the water. That's expressly what that agreement says.
Go ahead, Jack.
I think what we're addressing here is not people's right to cross that property. What we are dealing with here is whether you can build a dock on it, right?
Well, I think we're questioning whether I own it. At some point, there seems to be some speculation as to whether I own it. Now, I seem to have a very high bar to cross to prove that I own it when all of the evidence shows that I own it. Yet someone else can just state they don't own it.
But what,
And it's
what
gonna
did you,
be, that is held in some regard.
what did you
I don't think
apply
so.
to do?
Put a dock, put a
Okay,
dock.
so that's
Take-
what
take
we're-
a- Take a privately owned piece of land that I pay taxes on, that I purchased with the intent of putting a dock in it, before any of this. Right? And is greater than 20, what is the rule, 25 feet? So it's 35 feet, I know it'll,
10 feet on either side.
It's, depending on whether you measure the tie line or the actual land, you're somewhere between 35 and 40 feet. It fits those requirements. I own it. that's a land right. You guys don't have to say yes, but it is a right that only the landowner can have. And if they allow it, they can allow someone that doesn't own the land, that has legal use of the land, to then get a permit for whether it be a dock, a mooring, or any of that stuff. Without the owner, you can't do that. And if the board or anyone takes that from the owner, without that owner's signatures, that's theft. That's of value. The ability to have a dock and to put a boat and all that stuff, people aren't wasting their times here on all this stuff because it's not of value. It's of value. And to take that from the landowner without their permission is theft.
Well, you don't own just a piece of land, you own an easement.
Absolutely, and that
And
easement is
I'm
for.
not an attorney, so I don't know.
Absolutely, and and if you look at what I did to place that dock, I placed it so that I am not obstructing anyone or anything from getting in and out of that lake from that, from what is passable on that lake. I went over rocks, connecting one end of, one piece of my property to another piece of my property, which, by the way, Becker has done in 2 ways on that other piece of land. He has one with a hard dock that I assume is the dock maybe that he put in the water back in 18 that he was forced to take out. Right? I have a letter in the packet also from Steve's someone. This is not the first time that this has gone on, and it goes on. I don't know why they didn't just get a survey done years ago. They should have. It's ridiculous that it wasn't, that all of this happened. A survey was never done.
I would just like to read into record some of the responses from Kevin Nelligan that
Sure.
you alluded to.
Sure.
And question number 1 was whether a dock or a boat lift can be put in a right-of-way. Okay? A dock and or boat lift cannot be placed in an easement in such a way as to block the rights of the holder of the easement. Placing a dock in the water would not block an easement since the terms of the easement do not extend into Highland Lake. Okay? Next question, whether the property owner that is subject to the right-of-way has been paying taxes on it has more rights than anyone else. And the answer is the owner of the property over which an easement crosses retains full ownership of the property. Their ownership is only limited to the terms of the easement.
Correct.
And whether a dock at the end of the right-of-way would then become an extension of the right-of-way, thereby allowing all with the rights to the right-of-way to use that dock. The answer is no. The right-of-way to install the dock under our ordinance is limited only to the permit holder. Although other persons may have the same rights over the easement area to access the lake, the dock may only be used by the permit holder, and that's the ordinance. And then whether or not the authorization to install a structure in the lake that creates a conflict with a right-of-way, and he's saying no, it doesn't. And the last question is whether or not, whether if neither applicant owned the right-of-way but had legal access to it, did the legal access give them the right to put a dock in the water? And it says yes.
And I'd like to clarify a point on that. Twofold, okay?
It's conflicting.
It's totally conflicting.
It is.
Of course it is.
It's
Because
conflicting.
it's not, what he has left out is that to fill out an application, what do you need?
Answer your own question.
The owner's signature. Per ordinance, per regulations, you need the owner's signature, and that's why I say you can't take it from the owner, the owner has to give it. That's the way the ordinance, that's the way the regulations are written.
And just to backtrack a little bit, you alluded to and read into some part of the record, some kind of agreements that were placed with the previous owner regarding the use of the easement and such.
Whitley.
My recollection of reading that 5 or 6 or 7 or 8 page legal notice,
Well, there's a Becker and there's a Whitley.
I think I only
If
saw
it's
the Becker.
longer, you're probably talking Becker. Whitley
I
was
think
like
I
2
only saw the
pages.
Becker.
Yep.
And if I'm not correct,
It's in your
if I'm,
packet.
if I'm incorrect, I think that agreement was written by an arbitrator who was silent on the use of the water? Or what can be put on the water?
It didn't, they didn't address it. For one, I don't think they have.
Well, the whole bone of contention is the waterfront, not going back and forth to the water.
Of course it is.
And that whole 9-page decision from Litchfield Court was silent on the waterfront.
No, it wasn't.
Show me.
So it goes driveway, grass area, so numbered by their, if you wanna, it's in your packet, page 3 of 7.
Okay.
So I'd like to preface all this by, there's a ton of language in here, in this agreement, that speaks to cutting the grass and trimming the bushes and maintenance and
But
all
that's
this
not the
stuff.
substance of what we're talking about.
Of course not, right? But honestly, if you took it by numbers of words, it would probably be the beef of the document. Now, the reason all that exists is because if someone has the ability to pass over it, and it's not kept in a way that's passable, they have the right to make it passable and maintain it. That's what that's all about. With regard to Unity Beach, Becker shall have the right to cross and recross Unity Beach for access to Highland Lake. Such right will include the right to periodically cross Unity Beach with a vehicle as required to place or remove rafts, boats, jet skis, and the like in the lake. However, in doing so, such vehicular use will be limited to the minimum amount of time to complete the task and expressly does not include the right to park anywhere on Unity Beach at any time. Both Becker and Fujiri have the right to mow and right to trim the bushes and trim lawns and all that stuff. To keep it in a good appearance, so on and so on and so on. Hang on a moment, there's more. Nobody can leave, so you can't leave anything on Unity Beach, no floats, no docks. Now, you gotta understand, put this in the context of what was happening. They're in an argument, Fujiri goes in, now, my understanding is for years, Fujiri had stored his floating dock, he would pull it up on Unity Beach in the winter, right? So, part of the agreement was that he couldn't do that. As a matter of fact, nothing could be stored there, okay? On that note, the only person that's ever broken that I know of are the other parties. They're the only people that have left something.
Was there anything in this agreement, which was my original question, which gives you the right to put a dock in the water?
No, they never speak to a dock.
I said, so my contention was that the 9 or 10-page arbitrator's decision was silent on the use of the waterfront.
It was silent on all my rights that don't include somebody passing over the land.
Okay, I just wanted to just.
There's other rights it was silent to. Right?
But that's not what we're talking about. I
No,
just
we're
didn't
not.
wanna,
We're not, but
I didn't wanna,
it wasn't purposefully silent on that.
wow, I think a 9-page decision rendered by a court, where two neighbors
Because
are
at this
contending.
time- At this time, the speculation was not that I didn't own it. No, but those claims weren't being made.
It was the use and right of it.
It was just getting, it's been a step. It's been a
Okay.
stepping stone here. First, get use. Now, more recently, take a look at all the language you have. Now it's exclusive use. 15, 20 years of exclusive use. That's now the narrative.
I just
Go
want to
ahead,
point this
Ann.
out to the commission.
Please, talk into the mic, this way.
I just wanted to read this one paragraph here. It says, Becker shall not leave any cut brush on Unity Beach or any portion of the Fujiri property. Neither Becker nor Fujiri shall leave vehicles on Unity Beach or store any boats, floats, or docks on Unity Beach. The parties acknowledge that at present, Fujiri is storing a floating dock on Unity Beach.
Yep.
Fujiri agreed that it will remove such dock from Unity Beach on or before May 15th, 2015, and not thereafter on any occasion store that floating dock or any other floats, docks, or personal property on Unity Beach.
I think there are some
And
pictures
then it
actually that you
continues.
guys
Yeah.
have from back in that time when the floating dock was guys probably got this, but that floating dock was actually sitting on Unity Beach. And I believe, for one, I think he always did it. And for two, I think he was trying to, you know, twist the knife a little bit.
Turn around, show the audience.
You know, they're in a mismatch, and it is what it is, that's what they're doing to each other. You know, that's not for me, I haven't done any of that stuff. I have only done exactly what I'm supposed to do. I've come here, now, all of this regulatory stuff, and I apologize, I was going to give Pam this stuff, this is just pictures of our properties, okay? So, excuse me. Just various pictures, and I'll point out some points here.
I just have one more question. I see the assessor's field card here.
Yep.
And it does, reference that the assessment is $20,020 and the appraisal is $28,600. It also referenced to map, block, and lot number. Do we have an assessor's map indicating this exact?
It hasn't been updated, so
Okay,
this
I
town
would really
holds
like to
on.
see that.
Yeah, this town, well, first of all, the map that you do have is exactly the map that's on file, minus the dock information.
Right, but I'd like to see that from the
It's
town.
on, there's a
changes.
Mylar on file with the town,
There
but, like I said,
I'll confirm that it was recorded in November of 2020.
Okay.
I know he's
I've
asked the
asked
assessor
the
why the GIS has not been updated, and if there's a reason why the GIS has not been updated. And I consulted with the assessors today to say, you know, what's the story, why it hasn't been updated? The only reason it hasn't been updated is because the town clerk waits until they get a few Mylars recorded, and then they send them, they scan them, and then the assessors have them, and they send them to the company that manages our GIS system. That's the only reason.
Okay.
So it does exist.
The assessor, according to today, communication verbally, she's going to update the GIS.
so when I keep on speaking, the data card used to say it was 0.12 acres, that's the measurement of 20 by 250.
All right,
It now says 0.17.
can we move away from the discussion regarding ownership and whatever?
Sure, I'd love
Because
to.
the bottom line is you want to put a dock and a boat lift out there.
Dock and a boat lift on
That's
my,
what,
on
that's
my
what's,
lot.
that's what's before us.
Correct. That ultimately, you know, all the noise aside, and that's why I left the initial statement to just what I'm asking for. I'm not, you know, this board is a board of the town of Winchester, right? The town records, all that you can go on is the town records. That's what you have for information. Town records say I own it. They describe the size. I'm up on taxes. Now, besides that, there are two other properties that I've found. One was included in your packet. It's a property owned by Hoffman Landing over on Perch Rock Trail. It is less wide, I don't know, 25, 30 feet. It is also a privately owned right-of-way and it has a dock. Then I found another one, a house for sale currently at 133 East Wakefield. And it has a right-of-way and a dock on the
Shore Drive.
Risha side of Shore Drive.
Shore Drive.
Those are the only, well, excuse me, there are also privately owned rights-of-way that are associations, and they have docks and they have their own rules. But with regard to the lake would allow them to have a dock, and the lake would allow them to have a lift. Whether or not those members of that association, the one I know of, a Perch Rock Association, nobody can put a boat on that dock because it's an association, kind of give the right to one person over everybody else. But those are, that I know of, the three privately owned rights of way that I know of. I don't know if there are others. I'm sure there are. I can't imagine that one small stretch of one half of the lake, I'm familiar with three, and there's none others. That said, every single one of them that I know of, the owner of that property has a dock on it.
Can you talk to us about your proposal now?
Sure, absolutely. So, I have a bunch of ways I could have done this. What I chose to do was if you look on the map that I gave you guys, on the west side of my seawall, there's an L return. Put one section of dock there, that's a 4x8 section of dock. And if you look at your pictures, I tried to mock it up with some 2x6s that are 10 feet long. They're exactly the same length. Yeah, they're exactly the same length. And they're set to be approximately that 4 feet that the dock would be, right? If you look at, which one? Which shows it best?
Before you
Sure.
go any further, how wide is that property?
What do you want to count? If you want to go by the
Straight line.
The tie line is 41 feet. If you go by rail land, you're probably about 35, 36, somewhere around there. But I think you guys go by tie line, which is 41.
And that little bridge that you created from,
Yeah, actually, if you go to the, excuse me, if you go to the picture, that's too bad. I have it. So if you go to the third picture that shows where Becker's boat currently is, that's that same 2x6 by 10 foot, 2x4 that I'm holding in the water. So his boat's like 10 feet off my wall, and nothing on top of my littoral boundary. By the way, there's no permit on that. There's 3 moorings and no permit. Also included in your packet is the original application for it. It was never signed. It was never paid for. It doesn't. The payment logs from that era are attached to it.
stay with the dock, tell us what
Now
you're
you know
doing.
this goes a lot of different directions.
I know, stay with the dock.
So dock goes out pretty much where his boat is. Now, if you talk about access, trying to access that water, you can't do that from there. If you wanna talk about putting in docks, rolling in, putting in boats, rafts, all that stuff, that wall took care of that. You can't put a boat into there. You can't drive a jet ski into there. So when that wall was built, that created the obstruction to all these possibilities. Now you can bring a kayak or anything like that. And when that's done, clearly that's done off the wall. My guess is they don't walk through the middle of the stream to do it.
You're proposing, from looking at your picture, I guess, a dock that sort of runs parallel to land, but it sits on the rocks on one side and on your wall
Yeah,
on
that's
the
like
other
a bridge.
side.
It can act like a bridge for me to get from one side to the other, but it also attaches it, perpendicular to that.
Okay, so that's 10 foot wide, you said.
Correct.
And then you have a 10 foot wide boat lift.
Correct.
Okay, so that's 20 feet.
No.
It's the same argument that we had at the last
Absolutely,
hearing.
they're attached to each other. That was the
I'm not,
argument.
I'm not measuring your dock. Your dock was measured with the 10 foot that bridged the rocks. I'm not measuring that, but when you get out into the water, you have a 10-foot boat lift abutting a dock.
Yeah.
So that's 14 feet.
Okay, I can also do that with a 4x4.
Well, I'm only going by what you're asking for, so you can make modifications before us, before we make a decision.
And I put it in my little narrative to you guys. I can make it so that there's legs going right to the middle of the water, right to the middle of that stream, and it's literally only the 4 feet wide that the extension of the dock is. I can do that. That's not a problem. It doesn't solve my issue of being able to access
No.
my other side of the lake, right? That would just be a convenience.
We're just beyond that. We're
Right.
just talking now what you want to do.
Right, but so all those pieces of dock are attached, they would be attached to each other. So I'm not using 20 feet of width, I think we know that.
Well, if they're separate structures, they get treated as separate structures, just like the person who came before you.
Right.
So you,
So I would, if that's what holds it up, then I would reduce that extension piece to the 4 feet, so that it's only the 4 feet, and it would attach directly from
it would be
a-
part of,
from a length.
it would be part of your walkout,
Exactly.
okay? And it would be
And it would just
included,
have legs instead of being on the
and it would be
side.
included in the 40 feet.
In the half of that, you're saying?
No.
Excuse me, rephrase, to make sure I
If you,
understand.
that bridge that you are
Yeah.
now eliminating,
Right,
you're gonna say it's gonna be the same width of as the walkout, the dock,
correct.
and it would be part of that 40
Would
feet.
attach to my wall on one side and have legs on the
It
other.
would be part of the 40 feet.
Well, it's not 40, right? It's
I don't even have it at 40, I have it at 30.
Oh, 30, I'm
But,
sorry,
you know,
okay.
I'd probably want that 4x4 section.
Then it would be
to
34 feet.
34 feet,
Good, okay. And then you have the 10-foot boat lift on the other side.
correct.
So now you have 10 and 4 is 14 feet on a piece of property that's roughly, how wide?
Tie line, if you're going by tie line, is 41 feet.
And if you don't, it's 36?
35, 36.
Okay.
It's less than half.
Okay, and the only other question that comes to mind at this point is the littoral boundary, not adjacent to yourself, but
Obviously,
on the other side.
yeah.
And the littoral boundary where you live and where I live
Yeah.
uses the cove method,
Theoretically,
and not theoretically,
yeah.
factually.
Yeah.
And
I've heard
the
that.
cove method picks a point where,
There's
you
various
know,
code methods.
tell me yours and I'll tell you mine, or
Well,
we're gonna go
so
by what we.
Sometimes you take a point in the center. So let's say you got a very, very true to a circle, right? You would pick a point in the center and you would just pie shape from that.
Right.
On the other hand, sometimes you have like a pentagram shape, or some sort of oddball shape, trapezoid. So you would create that shape in the water, and then you would connect to the outside lines from that. So,
The method we use is the first one. We take the
Well-
extremes of the cove,
I don't,
measure in,
yeah.
put an arbitrary, not an arbitrary, an imaginary
That's what
midpoint,
Keith did.
an imaginary midpoint, and everything would go to that midpoint,
Right.
okay? And we would have to look at that dock projected out 34 feet and look at your boat lift alongside it and project that out into littoral boundary and see if you don't violate, not necessarily easement littoral boundary, but your neighbor, I guess, on Wheeler's Point.
It does the survey.
We have to, we'd have to look at that.
Okay.
Pam, I have a question about this placement as it relates to the stream, right? So we're talking now about having dock legs right in the center of where that stream flows out into the lake.
Yep.
And I think we might want to get an opinion from Northwest Conservation about whether or not that would have any effect erosion-wise
There's
on that.
really big rocks.
I'm sorry, I was speaking.
I apologize. I'm so sorry, really.
In terms of, that being an actual waterway.
Because, I mean, you have something like this, Steve, right? I mean, like where there's, right? So there is, it might not be a bad idea to get some type of, because if in the worst of conditions, in the deep drawdown.
Yeah.
And then a heavy rain.
Yeah.
Rub it in?
No, you can only, I shouldn't say only, but yes, we have past experience with the worst of conditions and a deep drawdown and a heavy rain, that yes, you can have some erosion, rocks move.
Yeah, I just think it would be good to get their point of view, just to see if it might in any way increase sedimentation.
Well, I remember, and you said when we were looking at, Dave Batista had designed a wall and a dock system over on West Wakefield Boulevard, and I can't remember the name. I want to keep saying Gutselvi's, but it's Gutowski. Do you remember? And then it's like, well, you're going to have to take those up every year And Mary Ann said with her own dock system, you
Right.
know, what he's proposing is a dock system, if you will, you know,
Right.
where it's gonna be temporary, it's gonna
Comes
go out
in
in the
and out.
summer and
Gonna
come,
come in
you
and
know.
out, yeah.
And, you know, there was some discussion about, well, geez, you know, that's an interruption every year. You know, every year, you know, you're disrupting the lake
Exactly.
bed. But you said that, and you know, it shows you how times change and commissioners
Yeah.
change. And when you were going before the commission with your own dock, that was the recommend, and I don't know why.
It was the requirement. I wasn't actually allowed to put in a permanent pier at that
And
time.
what was the thought process then?
That it would be more disruptive to the lake bed
To not
to
have?
put in the permanent pier.
Well, yes. So, you know, I think in order of how this commission is seen, you know, ideal is cantilever dock system. Second was stationary legs that come in and out and then last and really pretty much not approved at all anymore are the piers, or
Right.
permanent piers. So I'd say that this type of thing has recently, at least, been perceived as the middle choice.
Yeah, I'm just
You're
concerned about
concerned
its
about this-
placement as it relates to that stream. And I just think it would be wise to have the Northwest Conservation Society look at the proposal and let us know if having a dock system in that stream area is going to in any way increase sedimentation or erosion as a result of its placement in a waterway. It's, you know, I mean, I'm not the expert and they are, but I think it would behoove
certainly
us
can
to ask
consider that,
them,
yeah.
yeah.
Anybody else?
I want to apologize for interrupting you. I didn't intend to. I get junky sometimes. But if you want to look at any of the pictures, there's some overhead pictures.
I see them.
And you can see there's like large, that stream bed is just rock. It's large rocks, small rocks, but plenty of large rocks. And that's what I would attempt to line the legs up on. So.
Yeah, I don't know how safe that's gonna be. There's pretty tremendous wave action on the lake. People have been getting bigger and bigger boats, so that could be an issue as well.
The
Placing the legs
Yeah,
on
the legs are
boulders.
very thin, you know, you get 3-4 inch legs that, you know, they don't provide enough resistance. Yeah, the water doesn't.
My legs actually get pushed down into the lake.
Yeah, do you have a boat on it? Do you have a boat on your dock? That's what does it, it's the boat.
No, that's how it gets installed.
Oh, you have to screw down in?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, wow, yeah, I didn't intend to do that.
Well, but what I'm saying is,
could.
if you put that dock, this is another potential problem. If you have your legs just resting onto boulders on a,
It wouldn't just be, so on my side, they'd be attached to a cement wall, very hard, and then so you have a square, and then all you have to do is brace at angles, so you don't get shifting, right? And you're talking about something that's 4x4. It's not 40x40.
have you had an engineer design it?
No, but I don't think anyone has had, very few people have had
Are
engineers.
you familiar with his property?
Yeah.
Okay, because it's really not in
Yeah, there's not, you're
not in a
not gonna get
highly
waves like
active
that.
area where waves are gonna be a major
corner of a cove.
factor. It's in a corner.
Yeah, but
Uh,
these, I mean,
I'm
okay.
just saying,
I'm
you
in
know.
a cove too, and the waves, the boats
Okay.
are huge
Yeah,
now.
I hear you.
They're designed to create wakes.
Yeah,
All right, before we move ahead and open the comments to the public, Mary Ann, any other
No,
comments?
that's it.
Andrea, Jackie? No? Pam, anything? All right, anybody in the audience would like to speak to this applicant?
Just one thing, I laying on the table tonight were, but I see they're here, so they'll probably, there was a copy of the 9-page stipulated settlement that the applicant has referred to, as well as a letter with some photographs from the neighbors. Keith Becker had emailed this to me, but I see he's here, so he'll probably review the contents of that in person, I'm guessing. But the commission has a copy. Yes.
Thank you. you just want to relinquish this area so that they have the microphone? Sure. And please refrain from any comments so that we don't have cross discussion. They were quiet and listened to your presentation and, you know, just be courteous. Sure. Thank you. And anybody who comes forward, just please identify yourself and your address.
Valerie Lochner, I'm here representing Wheelers Point Association.
Okay.
I live on Wheelers Point, 539.
Use the mic also? Okay.
I'm sorry, 539 Wheelers Point. But I'm the president of our association. We are a six-property association. And we have, well, I don't know if you guys are familiar with this map.
And just for the record, anything that you discuss or present has to be left for the file?
Okay,
Okay.
I can make this. It's,
Could you just lift it up?
yeah, it's something called Highland Lake Shores. There are
I think that's,
192 very small parcels of this, and all of these parcels have rights to the right-of-way from East Wakefield down to Unity Beach. Wheelers Point, our road is a right-of-way, and then there's a right-of-way from Wheelers Point down to Unity Beach. That's all marked in yellow. And all of these 192 lots, now not most of them aren't built on, many of them are on the other side of East Wakefield Boulevard. But they all, this Unity Beach area is the only lake access that they have. Now, Wheelers Point was deeded, and this is a copy of that deed, these 12 parcels of the 192. And that they own 3, and I think the wards own 5, and then the Gonzaleses own, like maybe 10 or whatever.
what was the last name you mentioned?
The last party, I don't know how to pronounce his last name.
Gonzalez?
Yes,
Okay, the applicant.
the applicant,
Okay,
yes.
fine.
So he also is part of this overall Highland Lake Shores. Okay, but all of these have rights to enter this lake frontier. Now, quite honestly, I live on Wheelers Point. I have water access. I will, other than it's pretty to go down there, I won't be accessing the water from there. But other people might someday, who knows? So, just
The question I have of that map,
yeah,
and I think it would settle a lot of the discussion, or maybe cloud a lot of the discussion. That, the reference that you made to the right-of-way to Highland Lake from the driveway of Wheelers Point, seems to be perpendicular to the lake,
yes,
and it goes to the water, or it
Yes.
doesn't go to the water?
it does go to the water.
Mr. Gonzalez, from my understanding, is claiming that his right-of-way takes an L shape and goes to the water also.
See this
So,
yellow?
well, let me just finish just one
Okay,
second,
okay, I'm sorry.
and then maybe you can clear it
Okay.
up. What you're saying and what he's saying, you both seem to attributing the right-of-way, he individually, you to the Wheelers Point Association, but it's the same 30 or 40 feet on the water, if that's my understanding.
Yes, they both meet up. The two right-of-ways, well, there's 3, really, Wheelers Point, and then what would be, I guess, say the Beckers and Ward's driveway.
Well, that's
That's a right-of-way.
That's what,
And then there's another one going from Wheelers Point to the driveway, then to Unity Beach.
right to the water. Okay.
So there's a whole little square.
Is there any way you can produce records that would clearly indicate that, other than what you're giving us? Because you're both claiming the same property in the conversation.
So,
And, go ahead,
who owns the right-of-way coming from Wheelers Point?
the association, I guess.
No, this whole thing is Highland Lake Shores.
Enclave is saying that he owns the portion that comes in from
From
East Wakefield.
No, that's also part of this Highland Lake Shores.
And
His
that's on-
property is part of Highland Lake Shores as well.
It was, somewhere along the line, I seem to remember, going back 5 or 6 years ago, because this is not a new conversation, it comes up and it dies, and we don't deal with it. Then it comes up again, and we deal with it again, or it dies. Somewhere along the line, I believe John DeCara did a survey that talked about those both properties and, but obviously, you know, it's 5 or 6 years ago, I don't have it in front of me, I don't know what it says. And if your Highland Lake Shores, or whatever it is, has a copy of that survey, it would be beneficial to this commission, because it would allow us to give your survey and the gentleman's survey to our legal.
Well, I can ask the gentleman who, you know, gave this to me, I don't have it. I honestly had never heard of Unity Beach till about 6 weeks ago.
Okay. Well, you had
Even
no
though
interest,
I've
you had no
owned
interest in
property
it, yeah.
For,
Yeah.
you know, 4 years or 4.5
Yeah.
years. But this is all kind of new to me. But as president of
Okay.
the association, I've been asked to get involved, so I'm trying to do what I can and ask around.
Okay, so can you leave that documentation or make a copy of it and give it to Pam, just so,
I have to have it tonight, and she
Okay.
can come tomorrow and I
can
can
you
give her.
give it back to her?
I can make a copy
A
tomorrow and
tomorrow?
bring it to you.
No, I have to have it tonight, and then,
Okay,
yeah,
fine.
yeah.
And can you return a copy to her?
Of course.
Okay.
Everything's public record, yeah.
Okay, thank you. Is there anything else you'd like to introduce?
Well, basically, I just have different maps that just sort of show the same thing, so, I don't know. I guess I've said.
So
what
to
I think that-
summarize your contention,
My summary is that really, this Unity Beach, nobody should put a dock on it. Not the Beckers, not the,
Gonzalez.
No, nobody. It's the only lake access for a lot of different parcels of land, the only beach access for
but
many,
that
many
right-of-way is clearly not the same right-of-way that Mr. Gonzalez is making reference to.
Well, I
Well,
think it is.
at that point it is.
I think it is the same
At that
right-of-way
point
that
it
he's
is.
talking about.
Yes.
Now, I'm not sure how ownership and right-of-way works, or that, but I don't think anybody should be building a
Okay.
dock on
So
it.
what you're saying is all those rights of way come together at Unity Beach?
Yes.
And that it was essentially intended as a community access?
Yes. Yes.
Does it, does your association or any individual pay taxes on that property?
We pay taxes on the 12 little properties here that are part of this grander association.
That's your parking lot?
Yes, that's our parking lot, and this is the deed, and I'm the president and the treasurer, and we pay the taxes.
Now, that parking lot continues to the waterfront?
No, it does not.
Okay.
It's adjacent to some right-of-ways. So say we ever, as an association, whatever, sold that lot and built a house there, that would be their only access to the water.
Okay.
If we did, I'm just saying.
Thank you.
I don't think that's gonna happen. We like to park our trailers there and, you know, things like that, but that is,
Okay, just leave Pam with your material.
I need the deed that you referenced
okay,
as part of your discussion, and that color map.
okay.
Is there anything else that you referenced that you would like to leave with her?
Those are really the two main things.
Okay?
Thank you.
And I can get them copies back, so, at some point.
Yeah, step down, and I can always give you copies of anything.
Thank you.
Yep.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Is there anybody else in the audience that would like to say something? Go ahead, come forward, please. Just state for the record your name and your address.
Sure. Beth LaChance, 534 Wheeler's Point. I have two things I wanted to cover just regarding this particular application. So the first application that went in with the first dock we saw online. However, this new proposal we haven't seen, so I'd like to be able to see it before I can make a comment on it. The first one was clearly going over our littoral boundaries, which you brought up on the last, everyone brought it up on the last meeting. I watched the one on Zoom. So I don't know if this new one does. So would we be able to see that everything was facing this way and we couldn't see anything from back there? So that would be my first thing.
Yeah, okay.
So I would want to make sure that clearly he was not going over the littoral, if in fact he is in fact approved to go ahead and put a dock on that area, given the cove method, which is clearly depicted and how everything is done here on Highland Lake. It does have to go out an angle towards my property, and so I just want to make sure that it does in fact not encroach my littoral boundary. So I moved from Perch Rock Trail, where everything was 50 feet, 50 feet, 50 feet, and we were all squished in. I bought a much more expensive property on Wheeler's Point to get away from that. So the last thing I want to do is just say, sure, go ahead, and then have someone encroach my littoral boundary when I bought a very large piece of property to try to eliminate that from happening. So I'd want to see that before anything, that moves forward. And then the second thing is, given that I just purchased on Wheeler's Point, the previous owner I became very close to over the last year and a half. And he was very open about all of the litigious activity that happened on and around right next to 534 Wheeler's Point, which is now mine. So my understanding, which I think Valerie was trying to convey, is, and it is in my deed. In my deed, I do have deeded rights to the lot that is owned by the association. In that deed, which she does have a copy of, it makes reference to having deeded rights to the right-of-way. They don't own it. No one owns it. I don't own it. They don't own it. The association doesn't own it, but it is in our deed. So to have deeded rights to something, even if no one's going to use it, all of Wheeler's Point, we all have beautiful properties. We can use our own land. We're never going to, most of us are never going to ever walk down there to access that. However, it is no one's right to take away our right to be able to access that. And having a dock that would in essence have to go with the cove method, which would in essence go in this direction, would in fact impact anyone passing through that little 12-foot, which I know everyone's saying, okay, it's 20 feet, but maybe it's 35 feet, whatever. In the end, it's all rocks that can't be walked on with a 12-foot section of retaining wall. So if you cross that, going with the cove method, then in fact you are really restricting access. So, as a new owner, as somebody who lives and abuts that property, I would want to make sure that my rights are protected as 534, but also my deeded rights to those lots that I also purchased with my very expensive purchase on that road on Wheeler's Point is also protected, because in the end, there are parcels of land, and if we decided as an association to sell that, the value would be incredibly decreased, because it would no longer have the rights or access, really, to be able to really access the water. So that's all I have to say about that. But how can I see what is this new projection? Because he reached out to us, Mr. Gonzalez reached out to us about 2.5 months ago saying he was going to put in an application, but don't worry, he may encroach on our littoral boundary, but he's not going to go over it. And so we kind of just, we're handshake kind of people. We're like, all right, great, yeah, sure. And then lo and behold, we watch the meeting, see the proposal, and it's not encroaching. It was well over the littoral boundary. So how can we see that, the new one that has just been presented this evening?
Get her copy, Pam?
Yes.
The lady previous to you indicated that, and I asked the question, whether or not she had anything to introduce that in terms of documentations. I made reference to a recollection that John DeCara had at one point made statements to the fact that that property in question was part of this Unity Beach right-of-way. Mr. Gonzalez is challenging that, and he says he's been paying taxes on it and so forth.
Right.
Is there anything in your being you're a recent homeowner, that you may have documents to support the ownership of that easement, or that it exists as part of Unity Cove and not as part of Mr. Gonzalez's right-of-way?
Right, thank you. So, Mr. Cristoforo left a whole giant chunk of things from the lawsuit, from you name it, it's all there. I was able to kind of pick through. There's nothing, and this is why it's been 25 years that people have been battling over this. There's no answer. Nobody can absolutely say for certain it is owned by that property that Mr. Gonzalez purchased. So that's why it keeps coming up and then dying, it keeps coming up and dying, because there's several lawsuits and they all end up dying, or there ends up being a final 9-page written thing from the Court of Litchfield that basically says they won't touch who owns it, but they're gonna say that everybody gets to pass through it. So, no, I don't have any proof of who owns it, that I don't know. All I know is that in my deed, and what I purchased, it says I have a right of way that actually goes alongside my property, and actually goes over part of my driveway, a good portion of my driveway. So it's a slippery slope, because when you look at some of the maps that were referenced earlier, this right of way that comes in from East Wakefield, also the right of way that is the Wheeler Point driveway. Then this right of way that goes right down in between, they all kind of touch, right? And nobody knows, okay, is there a hard stop? Does it all connect? And somebody could say, it's a slippery slope, they could say, oh, it all connects. Now I own all of this, and it's gonna go encroach in my property, where my driveway is, and go all the way down in between my property and the Wheeler's Point Association property. So there's a slippery slope there, and that is really where I think Mr. Cristoforo was really trying to make sure that that wasn't happening when he was alive. So no, I don't have anything that would show proof of that. I think that the proof of that is that there's been 25 years of litigation, and things have gone up and gone down, and nothing's been finalized, and it's kind of left up in the air. But I do know that I have rights, deeded rights, to be able to access that, and it shouldn't be taken away from me, because it will devalue the property that in essence, if we were ever to sell, the association were to sell, I own a sixth of that. So I wouldn't want that to be devalued. Now, that's just talking about our association and our lots. Then there's the Beckers, the Wards, and all of those lots all across the street that all have deeded rights to the right of way. It is in their deed. So, even though one person may want to use it a lot more than others, that's great. That's fine. But everyone has the right, that has deeded access, has the right to be able to pass it. And if you put a dot across it with the cove method, it truly will impact access. So that's it.
Anybody have any questions?
I was wondering how many people actually had a right of way to that piece.
There's a lot of people.
Figured there was more than
There's about
just the two.
158, I believe, or 159
A lot of the lots are
parcels.
probably combined, but still, there's a lot more people.
So yes, I do have the survey of I hired Takara to do my survey on my property. He also did the survey of, which is the one you were referencing earlier, I believe, on the last Zoom call. You made mention to the Wheeler Point Association with Takara. He did a survey of Wheeler's Point Association's lot that also included that 20-foot right-of-way all the way to Unity Beach. That's all on there. So I would be happy to leave that copy, and I will get another copy.
Pam, could she provide that to you tomorrow?
It sounds like you may be continuing the public hearing. So long as you don't close the public
Okay.
hearing this evening, then the
Yes.
record's still open and
So
documents
they
can
can come
continue to
back
be
next
submitted.
month and present it, or can they?
Or they can get it to you
In
ahead
between.
of time for your
Okay, good.
packages, yeah. And
Okay.
in fact, everything that anyone is interested in the commission receiving, paper copies, with all due respect, you have to make those copies. An email doesn't suffice. You typically drop off copies, again, like an applicant would, the Thursday prior to the Wednesday meeting.
Got it. So would everyone want a full-size survey,
No.
or just a small
No.
survey? Okay.
And I think for everybody's benefit, unless you hear that the public hearing is closed but not continued, then we would like all of the information given to us so that we can have a meaningful conversation at the continuation of next month's public hearing on this matter. unless the public hearing is closed tonight. So unless you hear that, then whatever you'd like to provide can be provided, and you can come back at the next public hearing also and contribute more or less.
Okay.
Okay, is that clear to
The next
everybody?
regular meeting is June 16th. It will be held in Town Hall, and God willing, no masks. And so if anyone who has documents that the commission would, they'd like the commission to receive, please have them to me by June 10th.
Okay?
Okay.
Thank you for your
Got it.
contribution.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Is there anybody else in the public? Yes, behind you?
I'm Vicki Ward, my husband Brian, and we are at 5.
Go ahead.
Would you mind if I read this?
Lower it.
We are at 521 East Wakefield. Pam, with what you just said, did you distribute the email or should
Yes.
we? Oh, okay, so
Yep.
they do have that.
Yep, sorry,
All right.
I didn't say that, yes, so they have, the commission has been provided, what was the date of that? That was last week while I was away?
May 11th,
Yeah, but it was in
Yeah,
their package
we
that
have
they
it.
had
Okay.
available to them yesterday.
We have it.
Okay. Do you want to go ahead?
Well, I guess, the first point is, we have a permitted mooring right where he wants to put this dock and boat lift. So how does that, how
When you
we
say
can
you're
entertain
permitted,
that? Well,
you have there's a document on file in Town Hall that says your mooring buoy is been approved by the DEP, I guess, the buoy?
It'd be you guys.
But no, but.
By us?
yeah, yes, and it's been there since 1999,
Okay, and somewhere in the files in town, it would exist,
yes.
okay? Do you have a copy of the approval from, I know you're not,
I have a copy of the application that's signed off on. I don't have it with me, but yes, we will.
then you could provide that to Pam,
We can.
okay?
I think Pam knows, I don't think Pam's contesting.
But
that.
it's just if you want the
Okay.
commission and you want it introduced into the record.
So just, that's just based on that alone, I think it should exclude, him being able to put a boat lift there. Secondly, there is the judgment in place from the lawsuit with the Beckers and the Fugeres, from a few years ago, that expressly gives the right, whether you would do it or not, but it gives you the right to launch a boat, launch a jet ski, launch a raft, and clearly you wouldn't be able to do that with a boat lift there. And then thirdly, the whole thing over this 524 address, this address has never existed for 100 years. The only reason he's pushing to get this address put in place is to create a new piece of property so he can get an additional dock.
We don't
You know,
understand.
If you go back to the, excuse me, one second. If you go back to the, apparently there's a new tax record that we don't know about that's been done in the last few days or something, but if you go back to the original tax record, the tax record is specifically for the 20 by 50 foot piece of property.
20 by 250.
By 250, I'm sorry, 20 by 250.
And showing that's what he pays taxes on, that portion, not the new acreage that just,
Right,
all of a
if
sudden,
you
the new
add on
acreage
this other
just
piece of
added
property, this other
within the
piece
last
of
couple
property is
weeks.
35 feet wide, and I don't know, from the Becker's house down there, it's gotta be, maybe another 100 feet.
I think 75.
It'd be,
And it's not including the part that goes to the,
it'd be an additional huge piece of property to be taxed on.
We-
And then it would be legitimate waterfront property.
And we have, I inquired at the last meeting what happened. I've asked a couple times, how did 524 happen? Christine, I'm not sure if you remember, Mary Ann, you and Christine were going back and forth. And I remember Christine saying, I am sitting here looking at the tax records and there is no 524. And I think you stated that that was correct. There was no 524 at the time.
At the time.
So
And still
again,
currently-
how did that 524 just
It-
appear?
It has, because he had sought as.
He is the applicant?
Well, I'm not sure if I'm answering questions. Usually we don't have the back and forth, and the
Oh, I'm sorry.
questions are funneled through the chairman.
I'm getting too
sorry.
old to have this go
Yeah, so
on for another 5 years.
So the
and
questions
sit here
get
again.
funneled through the chairman,
Let's
and if
get
the
it over
chairman
with.
is looking for an answer, so.
Let's get it over
So,
with.
so that the,
I would like that.
often when a parcel has no improvements on it, it doesn't have a number. But that there's no reason that is the case, it just is the way it is, no one ever sought a number. But when someone gets ready to develop a piece, you know, for, to come in with a building permit, or for whatever reason, for identification purposes, for emergencies, they come to the planning office and they ask for a number, and a number is assigned, so long as it's, you know, not an illegal subdivision. So long as it's a parcel that's recognized, then you give it a number. That makes sense.
So, using that concept,
Yep.
then 5 or 6 years ago, when there was a court settlement that was arbitrated, and
They
that
may
we
never
have
have,
9 pages
yeah,
of
they
it,
may never have asked.
they've never made reference to a number, an
No,
address.
they may never have asked, hey, can you give us a number?
Okay,
So
I
that, you
just
know,
wanted, just
Yeah.
a point of information.
Now-
Go ahead. Continue.
Do I ask you, so if 524 now has a number, is it assigned a number because he believes he owns it? Could the Beckers or the Whitleys prior to us or us have said, you know what? The Beckers made incredible improvements, they put the expense of the wall up. Should they have gone ahead and tried to get a number? If you don't own it, how do you request a
no,
number?
typically it's the owner.
I'm sorry?
Typically, it's the owner that comes
Okay,
in
so
and,
we're going back to-
Clearly, he owns the right of way.
He only owns the right of way from East Wayfield Boulevard, 250 feet by 20 feet.
And I
down.
think that's the past hour's conversation.
I understand.
Does it go beyond the 250 feet? He says yes.
Right, but nobody's
Other people
determined
say
that
no.
he does own it, so therefore, how does he get a number?
Well, he owns the 250 feet by,
So that's the only, the
by-
250 by 20 is what he's saying
That,
is 524.
that can get a number, yeah.
Okay,
Okay.
but that's only the 250 by 20 that he pays taxes
well,
on.
he's saying more, and the association and you are saying less, so.
but this conversation might be outside the scope of
Yeah.
what Wetlands is really here
All right, I'm
to-
sorry, go ahead.
Okay, I was just wondering if somebody could explain that to us. That was just a question, I think, in all of our minds. But again, we are absolutely, you know, I understand, but from what he said to us, and is that he doesn't want us sitting down at the water's edge, he doesn't want, we remove everything every evening. He feels that we don't pay enough taxes, I've heard, because we have a small property that's water view, not waterfront, that is our access. And I understand that there's a big contention, but I think it's because the Fugiers convinced him that they own that, but in all these years, there's been no proof. What was the name of the people, the people, the Goulets are the only people, and that's on that, it's on the
Oh,
survey.
Edmond Goulet was the original developer of Highland Lake Shores. And from what I've been told, it's been widely believed that it's the heirs of Edmond Goulet that really own that property.
And that's why nobody's been able to figure it out for all these years.
And I think at one point, that's, John DeCara said that to trace the lineage back to who the original owners were, and where that ownership is today would be virtually impossible.
Right, and Keith said that as well, who did the survey.
And the other objection, that we have about issuing, that address to a certain extent, that could also impact that loss and that judgment, down the road. Because nowhere in there does it refer to, 524.
Is there anything else you can add to the conversation?
No.
Any questions? Go ahead, Jeff.
Who was the original owner?
Goulet,
Before
somebody
us.
Goulet.
Oh, Goulet, and it's on the,
Edmond Goulet.
Edmond Goulet.
Yeah.
There are a lot of those little lots all around the lake that families, my area has them too.
Interesting.
But nobody can figure out who owns them now.
Any other questions directly to the panel? No? Okay, thank you very much. Introduce yourselves for the record with your address, please.
Nancy and Keith Becker, 523 East Wayfield Boulevard. I would like to go on public record to find out more about 524. I'd like to know what area is being identified as 524, because on Michael Gonzalez's survey, it clearly shows that he owns 20 by 250. Then there is a pin, and all A2 surveys say that is where his 250 ends.
on tax records, this is a big concern. The tax, obviously, if you went to tax town hall today, prior to whatever's going on with this other thing, you would see it says .12 acres, 20 by 250.
Non-waterfront.
Not a problem. Non-waterfront paved road. That's the thing from 100 years ago.
That's what's
And that's what he
attached to
owns,
his
and he
deed.
pays taxes on it, no problem. The question becomes, why did somebody want to create a 524? Our concern is, we agree, no problem, if you wanted to do it for 20 by 250, 100%, not a problem.
Okay,
The
so
question
we'd like
becomes
to
if
know
it was-
what you're identifying as 524.
Pam is going to, you'll be able to research that into the.
It's a question for the, not for this commission, but for the assessor.
But why? Why if you're
So,
allowed?
so you don't wanna get into a back and forth,
Well,
you know,
can
you
we-
wanna,
Can we
you
find
wanna.
out the answer, though?
Yes, they can certainly discuss with the assessor what the assessor is
So then
now
it
going.
would be
An
for clarity.
assessor, not a wetlands
But
commission.
why, I don't understand why, if you're accepting an application of 524 for a proposal for a dock, and 524 does not exist, I don't understand how you're even accepting an application for 524. And if you are accepting an application for 524, then why can't you identify what 524 encompasses?
Well, that's a fair point.
Yep.
Well, I think that the applicant, and I think what Nelligan would say, is that you're gonna judge each application by what's presented. And you're gonna make a judgment, we went through this, when you accepted the application. You accepted the application based on what was presented.
Well, we also determined that it warranted a public hearing
And public interest, correct?
to determine the substance of
Right.
the credibility of the application. So,
No,
you
no,
know,
not the credibility of the application. I mean, I don't think that's what you were doing, right? You were having a public hearing to make a determination on the request. And the request is for a dock and a boat lift.
But where, on whose
But it was
property?
because of public interest.
Correct. So you really
And the
just, and I want to be mindful that we want to just take questions and, you know, not get into a debate with folks.
We're taking a question now, how did 524
Yes.
originate?
Yep.
And is it incumbent upon the people, the audience, to provide this information to us?
It's incumbent upon you to give to staff whatever clarification you may need from whoever you may need it from.
Okay, so we can pass that request through
So,
me to you?
Yes, yep, and so after you receive public testimony, whatever questions that you have that you wanna take away, if you decide, and
we
it
can
sounds like
ask-
you are gonna decide to continue the public hearing, we just wanna communicate that through me of what you'd like and who you'd like it from.
Okay,
Well, I would like to know who approves 524.
okay,
What department?
you made your point, next.
But I can't find that out tonight?
No, obviously, we're not equipped to provide you with that answer.
So, no, that's fine. So
And-
then no decision can be made on this.
Let us make
524.
that determination.
Okay.
That's for
Well,
us to
I
make,
would
not
like
you.
to
That's
have
fine.
public records known that we vehemently object to 524 without knowing what 524 identifies as. And we also want to be notified prior to 524 being put on town records to know what that is incorporated, because that completely affects our judgment. And for the town to somehow slip in an address behind our back and against our judgment would be completely illegal.
We're concerned about it.
Okay, anything else you'd like to state?
Yes, so stating that,
If your concerns will be reflected in the minutes,
thank you,
and we will be sure to take steps to get answers.
thank you, sir. He clearly owns 20 by 250. There is no disputing it. 20 by 250 runs from East Wakefield Boulevard down to the end of the front of our house. Then there is another right-of-way. It's called Unity Beach because it has been a public beach forever since its inception. So on every map from 1920, it is identified as Unity Beach. Unity Beach runs parallel to our house and the LaChance's house. It runs comes straight from Unity Beach, which is the lake, all the way to Wheeler's Point. Wheeler's Point Road is another right-of-way. So we are surrounded by 3 separate right-of-ways. The one that Conglavis owns, 20 by 250, and then the one that is unknown, Unity Beach to Wheeler's Point, and then the road of Wheeler's Point is another right-of-way. So to identify ownership any other way is not legal. He needs to do a, what is that called?
A title search
A
by
title
a
search,
reputable
a title
company
search
to
has
prove
to be
who owns
done
it,
from Wheeler's Point to Unity
which
Beach
we think Goulet.
in order to identify who owns that property. No one has ever done a title search.
No.
That is why this contention continues and continues. Now, both A2 surveyors said that in order to do that title search, it would be very, very costly because they're so, the records are so old that it wouldn't be an easy title search. So that's why no one has done the title search. And that's why this land is left open.
Your husband is making reference to a map?
Yeah, this is
there
the
anything?
DiChiara map you were discussing at that.
This is
Was
the
gonna say,
DiChiara.
I have a copy of DiChiara's map, which Beth was speaking of. And if you look at it, Unity Beach is here, comes down here. Behind it, this is East Wakefield Boulevard. You go down Wheelers Point Road, then this is the right-of-way that goes from Wheelers Point area down to Unity Beach. The other one, which now is from East Wakefield Boulevard, the 20 by 250, clearly stops, as per Mr. Keefe's survey, as per Mr. DiChiara's survey, there's a line. It goes like this. It shows it this way. This clearly shows the 20 by 250 in a line, which is the end of that right. They do intersect, as Beth said, no question. But Unity Beach, it's called the beach for a reason. I mean, it's designed, not really, even though there's property owners that can go there, we all know that a right-of-way that's a beach is designed for the people who don't own homes to have access to the water.
Can Pam have a copy of that, or that?
You'll give me a copy.
Yeah, oh, yeah.
Now, that's one.
When is
okay?
that dated? What's the date of that?
This is the one, this is probably,
That was like,
now, on top of that, I do have another,
this is 2011,
I have another survey from,
but they're new.
yeah, I have
And
another
whose
survey. from
survey was
Mr.
that?
John DiChiara.
This is the
That
Kara.
was the DeCara
And
survey.
that was the discussion.
Okay.
That's the one you remember.
And I even have emails and things from DeCara saying, what we just said, it would take too much money, Keith, for me to do it. Give me $60 an hour, if you push it $20,000. He goes, it's not worth it. So trying to find you a title search. I have another one from Mr. Keith, who's actually.
From whom?
Peter Keith's survey.
Okay.
It's actually Mr. Conglavis, his current surveyor, that did the same thing, 200 by 250 with a lawn.
See that?
And that's
This
what,
is his current survey. One of them.
it says where the end of the 250, there's a pen.
Yeah, that's what, basically, that's what we're looking at here.
Yes, exactly.
Okay, but introduce this to the record also.
Yes.
Yes,
And then I
that's
also have the
recent.
same surveyor, Mr. Keith, 20 years ago, who also did the same survey for the same property, Mr. Fuger's property. Same thing. A line 20 by 250. And I even have an email, just so you know, from one of the surveyors that said they could not
They would not.
be conclusive to say that Mr. Conglavis owns Unity Beach. That's why
And the real
this
estate
contention
agent.
has been here for 50 years. And that's why you all saw the judgment. It's a shame that, we have to go through this beautiful piece of property. I did show you some things in there so you can see what it does look like. I would like to go through, if you have any questions, the objections of why I don't think this should go through.
You can take these back, but please give them to Pam.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yes. And I do have one more survey also, but it was a preliminary document, so, wrapping up to get that, but it's some money posts, same thing. Please bear with me, this has been, just so you know, we've been here for 15 years, and we've had 10 years of problems at this Unity Beach.
Yeah, and I
All
just,
for the same reasons what's happening.
if the town would, let's
please talk to the point,
Okay.
you know, only because it's 10 after
Not a
9,
problem.
we didn't,
right.
we
Okay.
didn't
We're
get
sorry-
anywhere yet.
If you don't mind, just
No,
take a couple
please,
seconds.
go ahead.
We're sorry the board has to be involved with this legal issue, but our family's been through well over 10 years of harassment and litigation with regards to Unity Beach and the waterway, and cannot stand by to let the harassment start again with a new name. I just wish we could all get along, not a problem, okay? All we want to do is have peace and tranquility at our vacation home and enjoy a glass of wine and take a ride on our boat once in a while, like we tried to do the last 15 years. Our family has been through enough. We oppose Michael Goulavis' attempt to expand his property footprint beyond his A2 survey, which I showed you, property. Unity Beach is a separate right-of-way and waterway, which has been used solely by 2 houses for the last 15 to 20 years. Not saying that other people can't use it, but I will tell you, my house and the Ward's House 521 have been the only 2 people that have gone down to that right-of-way, just so you know. Not saying that other people can't go, not a problem. Below are just some of the reasons why the applicant should not be allowed. Reason 1, Unity Beach is a right-of-way and a waterway access designed for non-waterfront property owners to have a means to enjoy Highland Lake. Unity Beach right-of-way is not intended for other property owners to build a marina off of, or block its use of non-waterfront property owners.
And that's an important point, because that is what a right-of-way is for. It's for non,
The design is for non-waterfront
owners.
people to
He has
access the water.
waterfront. He has his own water.
And doesn't he
The rest of
also,
the homes don't.
doesn't he also already approve for a 30-foot dock, or I believe?
Stick,
Okay,
stick
so
with
my
what you
point
wanted.
is, it's kind of a marina we're trying to develop here. He's got access, he wants to go across the whole. Unity Beach right-of-way has been used as intended by non-waterfront owners, shared by 2 houses the last 15 years, as I said. I've also maintained that property for the last 15 years. Has no bearing on anything, but I'm just telling you, that's what I've been doing for 15 years. Reason 2, the attached judgment shows that no structure can block the Becker's use of Unity Beach or block the use of the right-of-way at Unity Beach. The judge reviewed all the photos of how the property was used, along with how we accessed our permitted boat on the buoy for the last 15 years. All our rights are described in the attached judgment, showing that nothing can obstruct us from enjoying the lake, including crossing Unity Beach with my car to place or with rafts, boats, jet skis, and the like. The judge wanted to make sure that none of our rights were disturbed now or in the future. I supplied a couple of photos just so you can see, and I would like to just get to the end of that. If you take a look at a couple of those photos, you see what Mr. Fuger, the prior owner, did to us. I think you all have a copy of this, I believe. If not, I do have copies for you.
We have them.
It's on the table, and you
Oh,
can.
that was what's on the table?
Hey,
All right, never mind. You got it.
Got it.
you want, Jeff?
I have it here.
That's okay. You did? Thank you. Just to show you what we have been through and why this is so passionate, 15 years of trying to have a nice, enjoyable time. Mr. Fuger would block the right of way, things like this. He also put up a spike fence right in front of our house, 60 feet. That is actually across our entire property, the front of our entire house. 60 feet.
This is all part of the litigation that was settled and we know about.
Correct.
It's been documented.
Correct. I just wanted to show you this to show you what has happened to us.
But that has no bearing on
Yes,
this
it
owner.
does. I'll tell you what. It's the same, I don't know how you say it.
Mindset.
It's the
That's
same line.
that's subjective. Just tell us what you want to tell us, and,
I don't
you know,
want
we'll
this-
look at,
no, that's
we'll
fine.
take everything into
No,
consideration.
Steve, I don't want this to happen.
I understand your opinion,
That's-
but
No,
let's,
Mike, I don't want this to happen. And to me, a spike fence is the same as to put a boat dock 30 feet out in front of the
Okay.
Unity Beach. That's what I'm
can
getting.
you leave that documentation with us?
Absolutely.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah.
So your neighbor says that they have a permit for their mooring. Do you have a permit for yours?
We both have permits for that.
And can you get a copy of that to Pam?
Absolutely. She has that.
Okay.
Yes.
And Pam, can you put that in our package?
If, I'd like them to submit whatever it is that
Yes.
they
Yeah.
want to submit to you.
Great.
Then with regards to the wall also, we fixed that wall. It cost me a couple $1,000s, and we went to the commission and had the wall, repaired. All on our dime. Reason 3, the application is submitted under a fictitious address, which we kind of had already went over with the wards, which we'd like to have those answers, of course. Reason 4, Mr. Gonzalez already has a dock approved for his own property, 522 East Wakefield, and it seems like he's just trying to expand his property and build a marina for himself. This would completely disrupt all of the properties in the area, having this enjoyable, peaceful cul-de-sac set. Reason 5, the commission has already denied a boat lift at Unity Beach in 1999 by Bob Wall. Reason 6, as we just discussed, there's actually 2 mooring buoys that have been in place at Unity Beach for over 15 years. And of course, if the dock is put in, we run right through those 2 boats that have been there for 15 years. I showed, just to have some pictures to show where my boat is, I'm not sure if Mr. Kulabas, you know, I think he did, to show where it is, and then also a picture to show how, when you go into the waterway, the normal enjoyment of there would obviously not be able to do that because there'd be a big dock and boat.
Because like Beth said, the area of usage of waterway is really only like 12 feet, because there is the stream, then there are giant boulders, then there's only 12 feet of space, and then there's the giant boulders again. So really only 12 feet is accessible.
Now, this is the one big thing with the Fuger lawsuit, was he always was trying to say, I own it, I own it, I own it, I own it. But we finally went to court and everything worked out, he didn't own it, and we got our rights, which was great. With regardless of who owns it, he doesn't own it, but regardless of who does, Goulet owns it. If Mr. Goulet or his heirs came up to me tomorrow and said, hey Keith, I own the right-of-way, what are you doing, why are you sitting on it? I'd say, well, Mr. Goulet, or whatever, his daughter, who knows? I'd say, well, I'm allowed to. It's a right-of-way, meaning even though you own that property, the rights of those 192 people, whoever they are, have the right to go down there, go to the waterway, throw out their tubes and rafts and enjoy and laugh and then go. And that's the design of that. It's not for the people who, to build further. That's the concept of the right-of-way. Lastly, on the back, I did show other photos of how the property looks, just so from our yard. So you can see that on one side it is Unity Beach, the other side is Mr. Kulabas' property, which you can see has a dock already over there. He may be moving that, I'm not sure what he did with the commission, but on the other side is where my boat is.
Okay, thank you. Just leave everything that you want us to have that is available to us, or if it's not available to us, just be sure to provide it to Pam.
Okay, I would like to just add one last thing, and this is for Mike, mostly. Ray Fuger fought everybody down at that code. He had legal action against the 2 homeowners prior to us that I have documentation of. He took legal action against us. He took legal action against the Cristoforos. He was a very, very litigious man who sued everybody and took legal action against everybody. He never won. He always failed. In all of those attempts, with all of those suits, he failed each one. He spent his whole life angry, fighting for land that he didn't own. And I just want to say to Mike that he has 2 beautiful kids, 3 kids, I've only met 2. But to sit and fight over something that he doesn't own, and to waste all that time instead of enjoying it and having neighbors who would look out for his kids and be there for him and his family if they needed anything, or if his children ever got hurt, or anybody needed anything, would be such a much nicer, more amicable thing to have in that code than all of this constant hostility. I believe Mike was sold a bag of goods that he really felt was right, but I just hope that he would want to come over and sit with us and talk about this and understand what really is fair and what is right, and stop all of this fighting, because it could be a peaceful place to live, that's all.
Thank you. Any questions? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Can I have those? Thank you.
Thank you.
No, we're not All right, ladies and gentlemen, please. All right, is there anybody else in the audience who would like to contribute toward the public hearing? Pam, is it appropriate for the applicant to come back?
Yeah.
Come on.
Sorry to drag on. so everybody knows where 524 came from, it was actually suggested that I do it.
Please, no, talk to the chair
Excuse me.
and disregard the
It was
comments.
suggested that I attach an address to it so that emergency services would know where to go if there was a problem with the water, period. Now, on the side note, I'd already been through all this, and I'm trying to get things on surveys and all this stuff, and what am I using? I'm using a map, block, and whatever number. I can't even, like, I've delved into this quite a bit, and I can still not remember that term. So, it seemed much easier based on the suggestion. There was logic there, that made sense to me. However, made it a lot easier to call it something 524, especially since it's referenced, at various times, at a number of times. And it's always by some number that no one can possibly remember, or anything like that. So that was completely organic. There was no logic. I had said that I wanted to put a dock on that land the day I bought it. So, I mean, if you bought a piece of land, it's 35 feet wide, and you wanted to put a dock on it, I'm assuming you would think you would probably be able to. Now, if other people, in this case, it's a right of way, right? There's nothing that passes. If there's a 10-foot littoral boundary gap, clearly people can still get past that. This is not a mooring. The lift doesn't move. A mooring moves. If you want to, so all of these things that are in the agreement, that these rules that were created, all of these statements, in my opinion anyway, everything I'm trying to do works. I'm not blocking anyone's access. Again, the only blockage that exists is nowadays you can't get a boat or a jet ski. You couldn't launch something from there. It's rocks and a wall. I didn't put up the rock. I didn't put the rocks there, and I sure as heck didn't put up the wall. Right? So to do those things, the only thing that's blocked are those things, but I didn't create that hindrance or that obstacle. Right? With regard to the various surveys, I'd like to. So there's been at least 3 surveys that mention in some way that whole property, right? They all look completely different, by the way. Right? You have one that was a survey of the parking lots, the parking spaces or whatever at Wheeler's Point, which, by the way, you cannot make a house. We have setback rules and things like that. That could never be a house, unless I'm totally wrong. But I'm pretty sure by today's standards, you couldn't construct a new house there. So it was done by the association for that. Ancillary, all the way to the side, are these rights of way that they draw in a square pattern. I'll give you that. Put it next to that 1927 map, like I asked you to do for my map. See if they look anything like each other. Because the 27 map is the one that rules on all this stuff. Also, on that 27 map, which is also in your packets, there's a line in between those lots. That doesn't run through. So if you look at that 1927 map, clearly there's a hockey stick shaped piece of land. To the south of that, there's what is probably this right of way that we speak about, right? This is 1927. These houses, by the way, were all built between 1940 and 1948. So, anything that's grown in has grown in since then, from potentially someone not using it. But that dotted line on that original 1927 map matches up exactly with the guy who developed Wheeler, G.H. Wheeler maybe, something like that. So his 6-lot subdivision. Their right-of-way is also listed on the 27 map, and it says right-of-way right on it. That's on the southernmost portion of that map. But the piece of land is clearly depicted as hockey stick shaped, and the back of it, the side that faces the Wheelers Point Association, those lots, all that stuff, there's a solid line there. The only map that looks like the 1927 map is the survey you guys have from the most recent survey you guys have from Keith. every other survey you have, the subject of the survey was something else. It was either the Wheelers Point Association parking lot, it wasn't of the right of way, it was of the parking lot that abuts it, or it was of, there's one that Fujiri did when he put the addition on. None of that stuff was the subject of the right of way, except for the very last one. And that's the only one that's had significant enough research done that a surveyor that values his stamp would put his information in. And it was not easy to get Keith to complete this. I didn't push him for results, but I pushed him to get it done. And nobody wanted to touch it. You know, and he'll sit here and tell you himself. He will tell you, and Pam can attest to this. Pam, does Keith think that's one piece of contiguous? When you ask Pam if Keith told her that it is one piece of contiguous property.
The notes
I'm
I've
not
been
gonna-
taking as far as clarification that the commission may seek,
But again?
the notes that I've been taking as far as what clarification the commission may seek, you know, I've taken several. One is you may seek an opinion from Northwest Conservation District regarding, you know, the dock and the lake bed. Another one, because I look at these maps and I have my own take on what I think is being depicted. I'd like to verify that with John DeCara, with what he's describing, you know, this perimeter survey from 2011 for Wheelers Point doesn't look like he's addressing the subject area in question tonight at all. It just looks like he's addressing the parking area. I want to verify, you know, but if you're going to look at that and make a determination on the shape of the property and the ownership of the property, why not go to the horse?
Absolutely. Absolutely. That would be, yeah.
Let me ask each horse. Let me ask John DeCara what the question, you know, I can read a survey. And from what I see, and I understand where people may get confused, but maybe, and it would be something, you know, that the town is seeking some clarification on. It's this other map that was submitted by Becker's, I'm not sure what year it was, but this was at least, again, by the same surveyor who has done the subject survey, Keith.
What I would like, whatever you submit to John DeCara or to Keith or anybody, ask for a response in writing, so that it's not you interpreting for the commission what they're saying. And I just don't want to put you in the middle of a conversation and any question.
I always prefer it that way too.
Good.
You know,
And any
because
questions
then you're
that-
relying upon my understanding
Yeah, absolutely.
and my
any
reporting.
question that
Right.
goes to Kevin Nelligan
Right.
should be in writing, and the answer should be
Sure.
back in writing
Sure.
also.
But, you
This-
know,
this way-
if I have that takeaway, and then, so it was Northwest Conservation District. I guess another question might be,
Assessor's office has to.
the assessor's office, you know, and, you know, in my defense, as far as the number goes, you know, for no other reason than filing, we have people whose homes are on the opposite side of the lake, who have docks on, and
they're two distinct properties.
and the permit and the dock registration goes with the parcel, not with the individual. It's just our filing system.
I think we have somebody sitting in the audience now with that circumstance.
Yeah, so, you know, 535 and 536, you know, 536 is the house and 535 is that. So when you're looking at something to do with the house, you're gonna look under the house number. When you're looking for something with the dock, so the number is not to get into the middle of anything, but to just establish where we're filing it. 'Cause-
Maybe the number has a length and width to it that ends and begins somewhere. Maybe it doesn't.
And you know what, that's not something that I would comment on.
No.
That would just be, you know, something based on what's in the file.
Absolutely.
So, you know, it sounds like we're having a lot of discussion on precisely, the.
I think,
Pam,
you know,
so-
this is my last point. I think it's beneficial to spend the time with this kind of a discussion, because I think it will allow the commission to deal with all of the facts objectively, and it will allow us to ultimately render a decision based on the facts, rather than subjectivity as to what we feel, kind of. So I think it's important. I mean, we're basically using almost the entire meeting on this public hearing, but it's worthwhile, and it will lead to, hopefully, a decision down the road or an agreement down the road and everything goes away. Go ahead,
Well, I
Mary
was
Ann.
just gonna say, Steve, when and if we, seek an opinion from John DeCara about this, one of the things that John instructed me to do a while ago, and I'd love to get, because I can't quite remember clearly, but to get clarification on some of these, a similar thing, right? Like an association that had a big parcel, cut it up into those little picnic lots. Some people bought them, some people didn't, and some of them, the ownership is questionable, and
I
it
think
does
that's
seek
the-
back,
that's the
so.
issue here.
But this is what when you talk to John actually knows the method to check the transfer in the records, in those big red books down the hall. There's like a method that he has.
Title search.
Yeah, but, but anybody can do that. Any of these people can do that. So I'd just like John to sort of give us the instruction
I
on
will
that
tell you
method.
what surveyors have said is that they won't comment on ownership. They'll comment on property boundaries.
Yeah.
But they don't typically render an opinion on title. That's for an attorney.
I was just gonna say, if we get the information from the surveyors.
They're gonna
and
give you the
forward it-
boundary
and
lines.
give it- Forward it to Kevin Nelligan, he will be forced to render, I hope, a black and white decision, not,
On the title to
Yeah.
this
You know.
boundary.
Yeah, because
Okay.
we can't approve a dock unless we know the person applying for it owns the property.
All right,
Can I
Pam,
Can I say one thing, because I want on the record?
last thing.
The 524 has, I believe, clearly stated that Mr. Conglava says it's .17 acres. That means it's a land grant. I want it on record. He owns .12. Tax record's been stating it for 100 years. All of a sudden, I hear a little something, and then boom, before you know it, it's .17, because he wants to include Unity Beach.
And because
Just doing it.
Okay,
Pam said,
it's noted.
Pam said 524 is to identify where his dock is, but his dock
No.
is on 522.
Two.
Not on 524.
524
His
is
dock is
20 by
on
250 piece of
522.
land, has nothing to do with Unity Beach.
So I just want that on record.
All right, I need guidance from Pam. Unless there's any other new information from people in the audience that would like to come forward, question I have is, I want to continue the public hearing.
Yeah.
Do we have to make a statement that we're gonna continue it and avoid using the term "we're closing it"?
No, yes, exactly that. You want to continue it, you want to go on record of saying the date and the time and the location.
Okay,
I just had one more
go ahead,
question.
please.
For the deeded right-of-ways that everyone's talking about with the beach and Unity Beach and the association, is there in any of the deeds identifying that particular deeded right-of-way? Because there are different deeded rights-of-way. People pay taxes, each right-of-way may require that it's free of any encumbrances or obstruction. So is there any, in any of those deeds?
So there's only
specific?
two.
Okay,
They're based on agreements.
based on
So
agreements.
nobody-
Okay.
Nobody that I can find, right? I'm fairly able, I mean, I know you're talking about going through the records, I figured that stuff out pretty quickly on how to get from person to person, deed to deed, and all that stuff. Nobody that I could find, with the exception of the people who own 521, 523, East Wakefield, has a deeded right of way to that. I haven't been able to find it anywhere. And I looked, before I owned,
Okay,
I'm not saying it doesn't
Mr.
exist.
Gonzalez,
I'm not saying,
You're done.
I'm not saying it doesn't
Okay.
exist. I'm just saying I haven't been able to find it.
last comment and reaction to, you wanna come forward?
Sure, Valerie already, again, Bethel Chance from 534 Wheelers Point. Again, Valerie from the association has this is the deed, it actually in fact states about the right of way down
I'd
that
love to
space.
see that. I mean, I've never,
Okay, and
I've
she's
looked
gonna
for it.
provide it.
The only ones I couldn't find, so I looked at all the house deeds,
Now you're doing it.
and I'm sure that that's from the parking lots, because that's the last thing, there was a
It's not a
guy.
parking lot. It's
Uh,
not a parking
you know,
lot.
All right,
excuse me.
ladies and gentlemen, listen, at this point, I think the commission has heard all of the testimony, We've been extremely generous, giving you
Sure.
all the ample
Yeah,
time
I
you need
apologize for taking so much.
to articulate your cause. And I think by consensus, this commission is going to continue this public hearing,
Yep.
all right? Do we need a motion to do that, Pam?
Yes, June
Somebody make the
16th.
motion that we're gonna continue the public hearing and provide the rest of the language?
Before we do that, should we clearly tell all these people with the 524 issue to talk to the tax assessor's
What?
office?
I can't hear.
Is that within the
I
bound?
think the message has been
Do they understand that?
communicated. I
That-
think so.
That they can go talk to the tax
The
assessor's
town
office?
hall is open.
Yeah, okay.
We're welcome to the public.
they-
It's
if they
open,
have an
come
issue,
in,
the tax-
8 to 6 tomorrow.
Yeah, okay.
Yes.
I
You
would
understand that, right?
Please wear your mask.
Who's the person to speak to? Like the supervisors? If you need to, that's fine.
We can talk tomorrow, Mr. Becker.
Yeah, I don't know who's there now that
Pam,
Rhonda
provide
left.
us the language.
So motion to continue the public hearing for 2109 to the June 16th, 2021 regular meeting at 7 PM at Town Hall in P. Francis Hicks Room.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, so just to summarize where we are, we're gonna continue this public hearing next month, and at that point, you'll be allowed to come back and speak again. I'm gonna suggest only with new information or relevant information that we haven't heard yet. It's just not fair to everybody else sitting behind us in terms of their applications. But I think it behooves us to pay due diligence to what you guys are saying. It's just time consuming. So please try to accommodate us along those lines. And thank you, everyone, for your patience. And we'll see where we go.
Come on, Mike.
You need a copy of the survey with the total amount?
Talk to Pam.
From Pam,
Yeah.
from Pam.
I just emailed him.
Yeah. While you're standing, my sense is you're next on the agenda. Your public hearing is going to be continued?
Yep, it's continuing,
Okay.
as been advertised.
Okay, the next item on the agenda for a public hearing is application IWWC 21-14. The owner is Harris Daigle, 304 East Wakefield Boulevard, to raise and remove existing cottage, rebuild three-bedroom residence with a covered deck and steps, and related site work, including walkways, drainage, and landscaping. For those of you who are sitting in the audience, who are to follow Mr. Daigle, it may very well be that his application will continue till at least 10 o'clock, and at that point, we're gonna cut off any new applications. So, you know, if you wanna sit here, you're certainly welcome. I just don't know what to tell you other than that.
Yeah, they both feel like they're in the right. Still, I've got some people. I don't know what goes with what.
Mike, you ready?
I could use the bathroom break, actually.
Okay,
Is there a bathroom unlocked anywhere here?
Yeah, do you want yeah.
all right, let's take a 5-minute break. Let's come back at 1:15.
I can see my face is purple. I can't do this. Right, it's hot.
Set my watch up.
Stand up, maybe.
That was intense.
Oh, that was crazy. You know, I've got so much bigger. I don't know what is
Which application is this? Oh, you know, I unfortunately did not bring my big bag with all the documents from previous meetings. I only brought this week's.
I was gonna refer to it, I just wanna make sure you have something to look at. Refer to it.
Took me almost 2 hours just to go through all the properties, all this paperwork and organize it. So that it went according to the agenda.
Read all this stuff.
I have something too. Yes. This
So I'll just mention that.
Thank you so much.
But I'll make sure.
Thank you.
Peter's bringing it in.
No, thank you.
I was gonna say, I got another glass of wine.
Is there vodka in there?
Great minds. Very good.
Thank you. Jackie and I
Yeah.
understand we gotta have a
We
drink.
went vodka.
I hear you. It should be,
Well, thank you, Kevin.
Oh, you are welcome. Thank you so much. You're so thoughtful.
or is it me?
It's
Is it the
wonderful.
temp? It's
Well,
right?
now these pictures are
Oh,
probably
no, it's true.
in the zoning application.
No, the air conditioner had broke this week.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
It never breaks in the winter, does it?
Oh, boy.
So you've been off to the side, I hear Harris.
Yeah, stopped up
See,
today.
good. Did you get any of these pictures in your package?
Yeah, was that last week's or last
We
month's?
got a bunch of pictures. I'm
They
not
would
sure
have
I got
been
that one.
put in for tonight's package.
Yeah,
They were added
well,
later.
I didn't know that.
there's 2 sections.
Okay, good.
Yeah,
You ready, Mike?
yeah.
I am.
This stuff?
Okay.
Oh, is this for this one?
I think this came from
All right,
last
it's
month.
9:45. We'll resume the Inland Wetlands Commission.
Yeah, I got it.
Application 21-14, the owner is Harris Daigle. Please.
My name is Michael Sherman. I'm a licensed professional engineer in the state of Connecticut. I'm representing Harris Daigle. I created the site plan and the details, and I did his LID design for the site.
This is what we're missing in the other one.
This is an application to raise the existing cottage, rebuild a single-family residence. And he does want to expand it slightly larger than the existing footprint by 2 feet. We're planning on going to ZBA with that application. Since our last meeting, when we did it, we were fortunate to have a review from the zoning officer, and he had some good questions. He wanted to see how we calculated our impervious, so I've changed the plan slightly. This one in front of you show the calculations for the impervious. And since he had a question on it, I'll explain it to you. The brown here, I've shaded all the existing impervious in brown. And the proposed shading will be in light green, and where the light green is on top of the brown, that comes out as a dark green. So we have 3 areas here where
So dark green and brown are both impervious.
they're all impervious, one's for the existing condition, one's for the proposed condition.
Okay.
So what Harris would like to do is remove this roof overhang and this path over here, eliminate those, and then eliminate this other path here, reducing his imperviousness, but because he wants to build a larger house, and he wants to put a cover over his deck, he's actually overall increasing the imperviousness from 14% to 17%. So that pushed us into LID measures where we take the roof leaders, this whole impervious area here, and we're gonna run them down into a rain garden, which I have to tell you is a little bit bigger than the one that's on your plan. Because when I was going back and checking everything, I thought it prudent to enlarge it. It's still within the whole disturbed area that we put up in our wetlands table, where we have 2399 square feet of disturbed area. And it's all in the regulated area. The whole lot is inside the regulated area. Here's your regulated line that's 100 feet off the shoreline. And the good news about this application is there's no rights of way in here. And we don't want to do anything with the docks. And Harris already had his docks registered last year. So we're not proposing any change to those.
Excuse me, Mike, can you tell me the last revision date of that plan? It's revised for what?
5/10/21.
What's that?
You'll have that, right?
I
So,
will leave this with you.
right, so can you review the changes between this latest revision and what the commission has in their, looks
I
like,
haven't messed some of this plan so much, I'd have to see, what is the revision
This is
date?
413 is the one I'm looking at.
Okay,
413?
4/13.
well, what are your notes? Can you just review the dates and the, you
All right,
always.
well, I've done a few revisions to here. 4/15 was just in-house edits. When I have in-house edits, that means I just move call-outs around so they can be read easier and correct spelling errors. Revised boat lift location, the dock width calculation. We were just trying to give you numbers for what was existing here. And I changed that. Harris told me that the surveyor put the boat lifts too far away from the dock, so we just moved them closer to the dock. Because when Tim went out there to survey it, everything was up on the bank, and he had to just make an assumption of where it was gonna be out in the lake.
But we don't have the new pervious and impervious numbers on.
No,
this-
like what we
on this
have, yeah,
April
what
doc.
do we have? Ours says 14 and 18.
We don't have what you're, we don't have what you're looking at.
You will, I'll
Right.
leave this with you.
Yes.
Here,
So,
this
so the 513 edit is what? What's that say? What did
I
you?
have a
change?
5/14.
510, 21.
5/10/21, that is to address the town applicant review memo dated 5/6/21.
And so that's with ZBA, town review, is that Mark Melanson, that zoning
Yes,
enforcement? Yep.
that was, and that's why I added these calculations for impervious to address comments.
So Harris is before zoning board of appeals with a variance application, is that correct?
Yes.
And a
Yes.
special permit too, right?
Yeah.
Yes, so as part of that, Mark reviews to make sure that everything is in place to allow ZBA to approve. So that's what those edits are about. Sorry to interrupt, sorry.
So one thing is Harris is doing is he's keeping his existing deck, and if you refer to page 2 and 3 of the photos, the bottom photo on page 3 of 3, you can just barely see the deck in the corner. Actually, page 2 and 3 is best. You can see his existing deck. Right now, he has an awning over it, and that's how it covers it when you get too much sun or it's raining a little. And he'd like to make that permanent, and he's gonna build a new deck on top of that old deck, leaving that deck there. The new deck's gonna cantilever off the new house, and the roof is gonna continue over the deck.
So the,
So-
excuse me, the old deck cover is gonna be the floor of a new deck?
No, the old deck's gonna be standalone by itself, almost at the basement elevation.
I don't know if you understand Jackie's question. If you look at that picture on 2 of 3, it shows the deck,
Sticking out of the house.
right? And then if you look carefully, it's got poles to where the canvas used to cover that deck.
Yeah.
She's basically saying where those poles are, that's gonna be another deck.
Another deck, yes.
Another
So
deck.
it's the 2 layers of deck.
Deck,
Yes, gonna be the double decker.
right. And then there'll be a roof on top of that second deck. Yes, and, yes?
You'll cover both the decks, really, so we
So
can't
the,
count the lower deck.
The lower deck will be covered by the upper deck, and the upper deck is gonna be covered by a
roof,
roof
so it all
line.
becomes impervious.
It becomes a roof, by a roof line.
Yes.
Okay, not an awning.
so
No,
it's
no,
not a
so-
roof, it's a flooring for the second deck up.
Yeah, but it's
But the
either
roof
kind
is
of,
over the upper deck, so it covers both decks.
Yeah, but in between, there's a floor.
Yeah.
Yes.
just no walls,
No walls.
you know, right, because when you say floor like this.
Picture, Mike, picture number 1 of 3.
It's the floor of the upper deck.
The deck is existing, and
Yeah.
the next deck, the roof is on the top.
I gave my
So
pictures
it's
to you.
not putting
Yeah,
a
yeah.
roof on
Picture number 1 of 3.
it. Putting a second
That
story.
circular area
Well, but it's not
is
close.
the area that's gonna be
It's included.
enclosed, and then the expansion is gonna take place on that side of the property, correct?
I'm not sure what you're referring to, the circular area. Are you talking about this,
This
curved
horseshoe
line?
there, yeah.
Yes,
Yeah.
that's all gonna become building, and it's actually gonna be pushed 2 feet out into.
And that's gonna, right, that's what I said, that's where the 2 feet extension is going.
That's correct.
Now, do you need a variance for that also?
He does. This is one of those, this is basically a rear lot. So we use Wakefield Boulevard as a reference road, which makes this the front yard, makes this the back yard, and the lakeside would be a side yard. Actually, Wakefield Boulevard's down here. Look at this upside down.
So this, the south side is the front yard.
So he plans on leaving his sheds, he doesn't wanna touch those. We're gonna eliminate this walkway through here, shaded in brown. And we're gonna build a rain garden in here, and there's gonna be an outlet to the rain garden if, when he starts excavating for this rain garden, he runs into ledge. And the water doesn't have anywhere to go. A lot of times we make these, we know we have good percolation of the water, we don't put an outlet on it. But if he does run into that ledge, I'm calling for him to put in an under drain underneath the rain garden, and that would outlet on all the big, huge rocks that are along the shoreline there. So we don't need a riprap pad or anything for the outlet there, they'll just trip down the rocks. This used to be an old quarry, Harris is telling me, and that's where they left a lot of their rubble, right on the lake side.
In my visiting the property, you made reference to that quarry. That quarry was not directly in front of the house going toward the water. It was looking at from the house to the lake. It was on the left side of the house, adjacent to the, almost abutting the neighbor's property, where your boat lift is.
I haven't seen any maps for the quarry, so I'm not sure exactly where it was. I do know, looking at the ledge right along here, I can see drill marks where they put an explosive
Right.
and split the rock, so I believe this was part of the active quarry.
But you're saying the rain garden would eject into that quarry, and that quarry is up from the rain garden. The elevation is higher.
Well, there's ledge all through the site. We have ledge on the southwest side, we have ledge northeast, we have another piece of ledge sticking up through here. That's why I'm thinking we might run into ledge when we excavate, put in the rain garden.
And how would that be resolved? Say it again.
Well,
Let's assume you're gonna run into ledge.
Well, when you build a rain garden, you're relying on a good 18-inch thick layer of mixed sand and topsoil for the water to percolate through and get filtered. Then underneath that, you put your under drain. Well, so he has to provide that while building the rain garden. So if he runs into ledge, he may have to chip it out to give himself that line. And if he does chip it out, what he'll be building is a large basin in the ledge. And if we don't put an under drain in here, this will just fill up with water and hold it there, and a little mosquito breeding ground.
Well, I'm gonna ask that you include that aspect of if in the plans, because it's likely gonna occur.
I wrote elevation 882.5, daylight rain garden under drain and existing riprap bank if needed. That's how it's labeled.
Okay.
And Harris will give me a call when he's building it and ask me if it's needed. Or he'll be saying, why did you put that here? What's wrong with this rock I gotta chip out? But in a perfect world, maybe there is a large area of bank run gravel underneath there and you get away without it. That would be the only discharge we'd have to the wetlands, so we show sediment and erosion control from the southeast side of the house all the way down the property line along the lake shore and then back up the hill until the hills, it's going uphill to the neighbor side, so there's no way any water could drain past the silt fences. I have a complete sediment erosion control plan for the site with the detail for the rain garden. One thing I haven't mentioned yet was the pervious patio paver detail, which I've shown this to the commission many times. Because Harris is gonna have some steps coming down from access to the deck here, and I asked him, I go, don't you wanna have a sidewalk or something solid to walk on? And so we're doing a sidewalk with pervious paver patio. I mean, pervious patio paver, let's say that 3 times real fast. So all that is for us fulfilling the LID requirements so that we can increase our impervious coverage of the site up to 17%. And that's about everything we're doing here. We'll have some minor grading along the side of the house as he takes out the old one and puts in a new foundation for the new structure. You can see these grading contours, they're all matching fairly quickly up with the existing contours. So we don't have much disturbance around the building. Of course, all the soil will be because we're taking equipment up and down. So we're bringing supplies back and forth.
Would you just point to the property that you guys acquired recently? It's, just point to it on the map, because I just want to be familiar where it's located. Or it doesn't
Talking
show.
about this piece where you got your well?
Right. This, right here is my property line right now.
Right.
And the part that we purchased goes all the way down, all this actually, right in here. My well is over there by the.
Okay, that's what I was looking for, the well.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And that's all grass.
Property line goes off the map.
And that's a steep drop from the house to the
Yes.
well.
Yeah, right here where you see it's all marked as ledge. That's the steep drop. You can see that in your picture too.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can see that on 2 or 3 bottom picture.
What's your construction sequence, Harris?
I'd like to spend Labor Day there, and right after that, just start, moving furniture and clearing the place out, and leveling it. And October, put a foundation in. November, start framing, button it up by New Year's.
So everything is gonna be removed from the site as you demolish, for sure?
Yeah, somebody's gonna come in and just take the cottage right out, put it in a dumpster, and that's the end of it.
Can they get a dumpster up there?
They're gonna have to get an excavator up there, so I imagine a dumpster can get up there. I'm pretty sure they can. We've had cranes in there before, years back, lifting trees out and so forth. So actually, I have a spot for the dumpster already, and that's it. They may have
Probably put it
to
up in
empty
this
it
gravel
once or
area
twice.
here. Nice and flat, so a truck can come, put it down and pick it up.
Well, that's a treacherous driveway to get up, so, you know, having said that, and will it impinge on anybody's access to that road behind you going further out onto the point?
No. Actually, going up the driveway, I've had someone look at it already, and they could get an excavator up there.
Okay,
And when you get to the top, it levels off a little bit, and there's some driveways that go down.
right.
I don't see a big problem. It'd be a little messy when I get the excavator up there. Once that's out of there, then we don't need as much of the parking lot. I've consulted with some neighbors. In your packets, you have 2 letters of support on my northern side, which is the side where I want to extend. And I have one more letter of support, which I copied off. It was the wrong one. I have one from my south side. So my 3 closest neighbors, I have support letters from.
From Dr. Michael Lozier, it was an email, Saturday, April 3rd, 2021. The commission's been provided with a copy of that. From John and Christine Sliney of 308 East Wakefield Boulevard, another email from April 9th, 2021, both in support. I have a question here. Does he formally have an easement to that driveway? Who owns the property to the left of where you show a temporary stockpile?
Well, that's a question for Harris, because the surveyor didn't put an owner there. After looking at the adjacent property owners, all the letters that went out, I believe this is the town of Winston.
Actually, that driveway is known as ROW3, right-of-way 3. That's all I've ever known. It's been that way forever, since I've been there.
Thought you said no right away.
Here we go, ROW3.
Yeah, right, what are you talking about?
You said you had no right of way, come on.
So you'd have no problem, though, with locating any potential dumpster for demolition onto his property? It looks like, would you agree there's room to the, on the plan, it's to the left, to the west of the...
The existing house?
Yeah, roof overhang, I mean, you know, so that there's no issues. The subject site can support a dumpster, right?
Only if the homeowner or the adjacent house doesn't have a vehicle parked there.
No, but I mean, there's room to do that, right? We're not into any, you know,
The adjacent house to this side is way down here.
No, not that.
right.
The extension where you.
No, I'm not talking about there, I'm talking about
This
temporary.
adjacent property owner?
You're
Yep.
talking about right here, right?
Yep, right,
Is there
that,
room for a dumpster there?
Well, that's not, if I can, that's not where I would put it. I would put it, excuse me, I would put the dumpster right in this parking spot right along in here. Right in here, I would put the dumpster, and that way the crane can come up and get in front of the cottage. You just lift up and put it right there. I may add that no one up there is full-time. Everybody is seasonal. Mr. Mosier, next to me, actually lives in California. His son who lives there, is there weekends and so forth, but he usually goes to Florida sometime in October, November, depending on the weather. The Slineys, just stop by once in a while during the winters. That's why I'm putting this off to after Labor Day.
and would you have any objection if the commission's inclined to approve this to a special condition of engineer to report to Wetlands Office of any discrepancies, conflicts, and or missing topographic features as identified by the contractor in the field? Because Mike's got it as a note that, you know, so as you get out there and conditions are discovered, actually, if there's anything that's going to deviate from the plan, they're going to notify you according to the plans, and then would you notify us?
Sure.
Okay, that's my 2 cents for now.
You've been having me go out and certify the pervious paver.
I have, right.
I mean, so I can do it here too.
Yep, which is a zoning matter, you know, which will be required before you get a CO zoning wise, that the engineer has to sign off on the, you know, you're calling it pervious and it's pervious according to the design. Well, no one but an engineer can certify to the installation according to the design.
It's not necessarily the paver, right, that's pervious, it's the installation method.
Yes,
It's
yeah, it's the
system.
design,
Yeah.
right.
Yeah.
Sometimes the pavers themselves are pervious, but
Right.
that's not.
But it
what
has
we-
to do with the system.
They have
Yeah.
a product out there they're calling forest pavers, and I researched them, and they're saying the block itself is 10% porous. I didn't think that would be much good reason to pay extra for the block, because I think most concrete is very much 10% porous.
But they do make a pavement product, right, for it? Like, doesn't Fairfield County, don't they use it down there?
There is one they can pour that they do. Well, what you have to be very careful with that is keeping it clean.
Vacuumed,
You know, anything with pores in it have a tendency to start filling.
clog, right. So, okay, well, you still gotta open up the public.
Any questions?
That seems pretty straightforward, no, no work in the water.
No?
So we have to ask the public.
Anybody out in public want to speak to the applicant? All right, I'd like a motion to close the public hearing.
I'll make a motion to close the public hearing for IWWC 21-14.
Second? Second. All those in favor of closing the public hearing? Jeff?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Mike, will you give me that? Mike? Yeah.
Yeah, but there's Ali is here. In the old business, you know, Dawson, they're way down. Here.
We need to replace Christine.
That's the official revised site plan, this was the display plan.
Yeah, so stop back out and take a look where that rain garden's gonna go.
We still have one purpose, right? And the rest, there's
I'd like to stop back out and see where that rain garden's gonna go.
Okay.
Oh, now we have two.
Where the deck is, in the back deck, if you go down and follow the pavers, then it hits a little concrete stairs that go up there right before you take those stairs. That's the lowest area, the flattest area.
I'll wait till you're on.
No. My
Sometimes
cousin
I'm
might
going
move back. If she does, she'd be great,
Ma'am,
because she has a
we're not gonna take any more
master's
business,
degree
right?
in environmental science.
All right, just may I have everyone's attention. At this point, we've determined that we're not going to start any new business after 10 o'clock, and clearly we're beyond 10 o'clock. So for those of you who are in the audience waiting for your application to be heard or anything of that sort, unfortunately, time will not permit us to move ahead with the rest of the agenda. We apologize, really genuinely apologize. It was just, you know, we just had a heavy schedule of public hearings with a lot of detail and depth that had to be sort of ironed out and brought to the forefront, and it was time consuming. So I do apologize on behalf of the commission. We said
Are we gonna do old business, though?
we're not gonna do anything.
Oh,
We're not gonna do anything.
Would you guys entertain a special meeting at some point in the next week or two to take care of these old business items and some of the new business items?
We could certainly talk about it if we
So
will.
you don't end up with this same
Yeah.
problem at next month's meeting?
Yep.
Just for the old business.
Can we limit a special meeting to only certain aspects of the agenda? So we can, now, we indicated for public hearing purposes,
Right.
that there are dates already set for that.
Yep,
So we're locked into that.
you are.
But we can have a special meeting for non-public hearing issues.
I mean, you closed this public hearing, so I mean, you know, you've continued, any of the public hearings that you closed,
Well, Shorewood Dawson was continued.
yeah.
Stanziali was,
it's
Closed.
here.
was closed,
So you could take that one, 'cause it's
As-
closed, because there's nothing on the record
right,
to.
and Gonzalez is open.
Yeah.
And the Becker one is continued,
Yep,
and Daigle is closed,
yep.
so that we
So you
can,
could take Stanziel and Daigle
at a
for,
special hearing, at a
in a
special meeting.
yep.
Okay, and then, we can move into old business? Well, there's, some of them are in old
You
business.
should tell me which ones that you're gonna go on for.
You know, I hate to, can we skip and jump, or could we just
Yeah,
have to go?
yeah, cause I mean, you're not taking any public hearings for a special meeting.
The people that are here expecting to be heard today, probably be a good idea to go with them, maybe, if you're gonna pick and choose.
Yeah, and I mean, they've got applications in front of ZBA for June,
Who's this now?
for both Stanziel and, Daigle. They have, they need,
We can vote on those at this point now.
now, you can, sure.
We can take them
I
out of
think we
sequence.
should take those. I'm
Yeah,
okay
me
staying
too.
a
I'm
little
good.
later to
You know,
take
I
those.
just, I don't think there's any kind of extensive conversation anymore.
Yeah, exactly.
All right, so we can jump to the Stanziali,
You can keep going on,
yes?
yes,
Yeah,
yep,
okay.
yep.
He would
Alright,
be the next one
uh,
anyway, so.
We'll find out. I think we're gonna entertain application 20-15. The applicant is Sean Stanziali, 504 East Wakefield Boulevard. Their application as written, or the proposal, is for boat lift, jet ski lift, swim float, and dock. I think as a result of the public hearing, there was some kind of moving on your part.
You can't talk to them anymore, public hearing's closed. Sorry,
Can we ask what they're asking for?
you already have it.
Yeah, I
They're-
think we have to just make a
They're
motion
asking-
to
they're asking
approve what
for-
we're willing to approve.
They're asking for a boat lift, no jet ski lift, a swim float, and a dock. Correct?
Yes, so
That's
you
my-
can approve.
That's my recollection?
Yeah.
You can approve.
And we have to approve and make the judgment on the littoral boundary, on the dock.
Okay. Are we thorough on that?
Yeah, so
Okay.
make a
So
motion.
let's have a conversation before we move on the littoral boundary. I mean, everybody understand what we're approving. They're basically right on their neighbor's line, give or take, and at one point extends beyond their neighbor's line.
No,
I think it does.
no, it doesn't.
Does
They've reduced the length.
Oh, okay,
It no
right,
longer
okay.
does.
They're removing
Uh,
the jet ski, which would have made it
Right,
encroaching.
okay. The neighbor expressed support of allowing it. Any comments about it? We're good with it?
Insofar as it falls under our jurisdiction to allow it, I'm okay allowing it.
Okay, Jackie? Okay. All right, and just for clarity, you're going to eliminate the swim float to you? What?
Just a jet ski.
Jet ski lift, I'm sorry, the jet ski
So
lift.
the double jet ski and then
It's out.
maybe
That's
gonna
out,
do one
right.
jet ski, but now no jet ski.
No
No,
jet ski.
no jet ski, but a boat lift and a trampoline.
All right, I'd like to make a motion to approve application IWWC 20-50. The owner is Sean Stanziali. The proposal is to install a boat lift, a swim float, and a dock, which is now going to be more in conformity and not to exceed 40 feet from shore, and it's going to be attached to the pier.
Standard 1 through 12 conditions, and then do you need a,
Bond.
I guess because the application has a jet ski listed on it, I think we have to make a condition that the jet ski will not be
Well,
approved.
it wasn't read into the approval.
Okay,
and the minutes will reflect the discussion that occurred during the public hearing.
okay.
Okay? Is there a second on the approval?
Should we do a bond?
I don't think there's a
I don't
bond
think
necessary.
we need a bond.
Yep.
None of the work involves digging, it's all removable.
Yeah, just put the stuff in there.
Put it in and take it out kind of thing.
We should get, I think, as-built on this one because of the littoral thing.
It's probably not a bad idea.
gonna need the as-built.
It's just a little odd for the as-built, because it's gonna come in and out every year.
Yeah.
They need as-bills for any of the CBA stuff?
No,
they
no, like, you're gonna get
So
an
our-
as-built, yeah, all that stuff, although you're not talking about that tonight, because you already approved it, that would be part of an as-built.
Well, if they're gonna do an
Absolutely.
as-built
For that, yeah, but I suppose for the dock,
more expensive.
The
I mean,
pier,
for the
the
pier?
pier though is permanent.
Yeah.
yeah. But I mean, it's not getting constructed, it's there, like, that's as good of as an as-built, it's there. It's not proposed.
Yeah, okay.
Okay. Conditions 1 through 14 are standard. I don't think there's a need for a bond unless somebody feels strongly about it. Okay. There's a motion made, a second,
I second.
okay? All in favor? Okay? Thank you for your patience and understanding. Good night.
Good night.
All right, guys.
And we're gonna jump ahead to,
So, I mean, Sherwood Dawson is
Was
continued.
continued.
Chinook is, I don't know if you wanna, what you wanna do with that. If you wanna, we're getting close on that one, but that's the
why
one.
why don't we just deal with the people in front of us
Okay.
and leave it alone?
Okay,
The next application we're gonna consider is application IWWC 21-14. The applicant is Harris Daigle, 304 East Wakefield Boulevard, and the proposal is to raise and remove existing cottage, rebuild three-bedroom residence with covered deck and steps, and related site work including walkways, drainage, and landscaping.
I think there
So
was,
Steve, you had asked, which I guess would go in as a condition, for him to note that if that rain garden, if he hits ledge,
But Mike indicated that you indicated that in the May 4th or May 12th proposal, that you did include language to address that if you hit ledge.
I wrote if needed, Harris and I will be in contact while he's building. I always come out and check the sites anyways.
Well,
public hearing's closed.
Yeah,
I think we might just wanna note it as a condition.
okay,
That, anything that changes from
Yeah.
the site plan.
okay. So Mary Ann, you want to make the motion then?
Sure. With regard to application IWWC 21-14, Harris Daigle at 304 East Wakefield Boulevard, the proposal is to raise and remove existing cottage, rebuild three-bedroom residence with covered deck and steps, and related site work including walkways, drainage, and landscaping. I make a motion to approve, what do I have to say, items 1 through 12, Pam?
Yeah, standard 1 through 12
Standard 1
conditions.
through 12, and a condition that if anything on the site plan changes during construction, that you will contact Pam and discuss, let her know, and provide alternate paperwork should it be required.
No, I don't like that.
No?
Sorry.
You don't like that?
Can I help you?
Yes.
Engineer to report to Wetlands Office of any discrepancies, conflicts, and/or missing topographic features as discovered by the site contractor,
Okay,
if you don't mind.
yes.
Thanks.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Jeff? All those in favor?
No bond?
Oh, yeah, no, definitely a bond, thank you.
Sorry.
It's a big job.
2,500?
I was gonna say two, but 2,500.
25?
Okay.
Okay, a bond of 2,500?
Okay, so the record will reflect that. Okay.
Okay,
All right.
thank you. All those in favor? It's unanimous. Thank you, good luck.
Thank you,
All right,
Harris.
let's just briefly entertain the possibility of a special meeting at another point this month.
So we're dealing with Memorial Day on the 31st, so 2 weeks from tonight, which is how you guys have done special meetings, would be June 2nd.
Well, I was gonna tell you guys that I am not gonna be here. I'm leaving Monday for 4 weeks, so I wasn't gonna be here for the next meeting either.
Either.
So I can't
Okay.
commit to a special meeting, unfortunately, I'm sorry.
Oh, boy. Oh, boy. And Kurt.
Because we don't have Kurt and Russ here, so it's a little hard.
What's the
Well, I would
situation with
think,
Kurt?
I think Russ would probably be better.
Russ is, I think it's just a
Russ Hurt
temporary
is
thing.
back.
He's
Yeah.
gonna take a pain pill and be here
Yeah, he'll,
by
you
that
know.
time. He's got a little injury that, I think that's, so, I mean, it doesn't sound like it's anything
Okay.
serious, so.
Kurt missed a lot.
Kurt, no, it must just be a fluke with work. So, I'll verify, cause really it's tough, cause we don't know that we'll have a quorum.
Right.
We only got 4 that might be available.
Will we have the room?
I will find a room.
Okay. All right, so we're okay with a special meeting?
For the
And,
second.
Is there
and
any way to start the meeting earlier? Can we start at 6 o'clock so that 10 o'clock is more, palatable?
okay.
Is
So,
that, are you good with that,
Is
Jackie?
that a Wednesday? Yeah.
Yeah, it would be a
June
Wednesday.
2nd.
Jeff?
so,
Yeah, fine with me.
so
Wednesday
I'll
the second.
confirm that tomorrow with Kurt and, with, Russ for June 2nd.
And at 6 o'clock?
Yes, at 6 o'clock.
No, I
Otherwise,
can make it. I
so
don't
let's talk about which applications, so that, we,
Well, I think
Well,
it
we're not
should
gonna
be old
entertain any
business.
public hearing issues.
no, so
A public
C,
hearing and no, just old business.
so C, D, E,
Well, maybe
What is it?
C,
What's the,
242 per track trail, because that's really just a quick one.
wait a minute, now, where are you?
On page 2.
Old business.
Yeah, go ahead.
old business. yeah.
So C, 242 per track trail,
Okay, C,
I'd say not D, because
Right.
just give them a little bit more time.
okay,
How about E?
E,
Yeah,
Yep.
E. Skip the, not G, because that's a public hearing. I, which is 504 East Wakefield Boulevard.
Yeah, that was a simple meeting.
352 West Wakefield Boulevard.
J, K,
Or, yeah.
and L, okay?
Yeah, that's good.
We'll leave it at that? So we should be able to conclude all the old business that we didn't get to tonight.
And no new business.
Well, now, are the new business people accepted if we didn't
Well,
get to them?
They are.
I guess I'm gonna ask you if we can include B,
B,
Yeah, they're here now.
because that's a modification, and the agenda doesn't reflect that it's a modification, and they have to go before a ZBA.
B, like boy.
B under new business, because it's a modification, and like, had you gotten to that point tonight?
now that's 542 East?
Yeah,
Okay, so B,
yeah.
So
And let me just see if there's any other modifications here. There isn't.
what about D?
That's not a modification.
What's C?
What's that?
C, the link.
Under 7, I think they're gonna, that's what Jen Perga was here for, and she might be looking for an agent determination.
Have you been up there?
No. But I've seen the pictures.
All right, so that's what we're gonna do, everything that we just talked about.
So are you
But
including?
tonight, we're gonna accept IWWC 21-20.
Well, you're not accepting
If we-
anything.
Well,
If we.
It's
make
on
a
the
motion.
agenda, which means that,
You can do it in one meeting when it's a modification, like you don't have to accept it,
Okay,
you could
okay.
just.
all right, so let's just summarize. Under old business, C, E, I, J, K, L, and B.
And B under new business.
B under new business. That's it?
But in these, if we don't, I mean, usually under new, we have to accept them first.
Yeah.
But these would be accepted?
Well, yeah, I mean, because anyone can, now the clock starts ticking tonight for all of these, and someone could force a public hearing like now. That's why you can never approve it the same night when it's a new application, because you gotta give people time to force a public hearing if they wanted to.
Mike, go ahead.
Can I be heard at
Probably not the way we're talking. You'll be on the next month's June agenda then. That would be under new business D.
Yeah.
There's no guarantee that I would be heard at that meeting either, based on this.
No, but it's
No,
likely.
You would be heard.
Well, the reason that these good folks are scheduling a special meeting is so that people like you will be heard at the regular meeting. Also, if you end up, if they say they can't do that special meeting and we could go to a Zoom, I can do it. But I don't know if we can go back to.
I don't know if we
No,
can
no,
with the
no.
governor's order, I don't, you know,
I
like.
turned my computer, my laptop in, I'm
Yeah,
done.
he's,
Oh, and
well,
I
Zoom
missed
is
the
over.
Zoom, cause I have a big screen.
and you can hear it very
And
well.
I could see it.
Yeah,
Do
Cause
we,
the thing's that far away.
I like it too.
do we wanna take up violations or anything like that, or we wanna just,
Yeah, cause I have to talk about just one, anyway. A warning, on North Main Street, so I don't have anything to hand in front of you, but if you'll just let me know your feel. So it was, a fella had called about this parcel with some questions, and a lot of it were really questions about use that for the assessor. It started with, you know, about he wanted to hold a farm. This is before he bought it. He wanted to, and it's very steep. So I'm familiar with it because I had had several conversations with realtors and other folks on this. So it's on North Main Street where the house burned, and it sat there for a couple of years down by the station. So North Main Street runs out towards Colebrook.
yeah.
All right, so you know where the house burned?
No.
What is the wetland?
Well, the town has taken it down. So, but it's just before you get to that gas station. Do you
The
remember?
gas station that's on the,
That runs to Riverton.
Oh,
Yeah.
that's on Route 20,
Yes.
up there.
What
Right.
did I say? Eight?
you said Colebrook.
8 and 20.
Right,
That's
okay, okay. So you know, so just to give you a perspective of how steep it is there. Okay, so he had called and was asking about, first he wanted to have, and it was more about development, and then he wanted to have a farm, and, you know, I said, well, you know, I explained what's involved with having a farm, and then he wanted to have a landscaping company, and I'm like, you know, you are gonna need a site plan, and before, you know, look at, you know, and so when the conversation starts to go that way, I always make sure I get contact information, because what I do is I start the documentation, and I communicate in writing the expectations, and just so that's point B, that's our starting point of our conversation, so that when you just go in there and start ripping the parcel apart, you can't say you didn't know, you can't say you weren't warned, because you were, you know, very clearly. And that's precisely what he's done. That's what he's begun, and the neighbors in that area are very upset. So what forces them to come before you folks? This is, if I'm not mistaken, an R zone, a half acre of disturbance. We're there. It's a half acre of disturbance. So you folks almost had a cease and desist for tonight, a show cause hearing. I just want to kind of give you,
What's the wetland?
the wetland, why would it come? Because remember, you wear two hats. You wear hats where you are the body that, you know, obviously makes sure that you protect the wetlands, but you also wear soil and erosion control. And there's no erosion controls installed, and the neighbors who are on the toe of that mighty slope are obviously concerned. So the town manager, you know, I was out last week. This is a good example of 524. Like, it has no address. It's North Main Street.
It's behind 490.
Okay.
So, you know, like,
I don't
this
know
is
where
why, you know, every parcel in an ideal world would have a number. And the only reason I think it didn't have a number is because before GIS and before technology, you know, you didn't see it. Now you can GIS, you can pull it up, you can give a number really quick. This number is likely to be 501 because it's between 493 and 503. So it's going to be somewhere in between that, and it's going to be given that number quick.
401 and 503 what?
North Main.
Main
North-
Street.
So it is actually on North Main.
Well, then that's the tricky part too, because I think they did some stuff with land conveyances. So like, there's going to be some more research. Like they've got some, and even the Realtor was very careful with the listing, because like they've done some boundary line adjustments, and I believe it has access to North Main Street, and I don't believe it's landlocked, but that's not really, I don't really go through that depth of research until you come in for a building permit. Like, until you come in for a zoning permit, then we'll say, well, let's see if your lot's legal. First of all, let's get that straight. And that was my conversation originally with the Realtor. So that's why, like, I was very familiar with this lot. So, and the town manager has, when I returned from being off, he was up there too. And he's, you know, he's fielded calls from the concerned neighbors. Jim Rollins been up there, Mark Melanson, Jim and I were up there prior to my leaving, and I'm like, you know, it's not really a half acre, you know, it's common. I mean, you know, when they move in, you know, that, yeah, maybe you're not there yet for the disturbance, but that, you know, where it rises to a cease and desist, because you've just, you know, you can't clear cut more than a half an acre without some type of plan. So I think we're probably there, and I think we should probably have a, cease and desist issued. You know, I'll make sure of that, but I just want to keep you in the loop, and that show cause hearing, when you issue a cease and desist, has to be within 10 days.
Can I ask a question about cease and desist? Is there ever like a cease and restore? Or is it?
Yeah, I mean, you know, the result of a cease and desist is, you know, knock it off until we know what you're doing.
Right.
And then how do we know what you're doing? We know what you're doing with an application.
Right.
And the restoration is, you know, part of that.
Right.
You know, cease and restore is when you've got a site plan and you deviate from it. You know, like, okay, knock it off and put it back and come back, because now, you know, we're going to spank you.
Gotcha, okay.
Okay.
So would you like to see them on June 2nd? Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, before they get too crazy, because that's going to be another 2 weeks.
That shouldn't be
Where is
time
it again,
consuming.
Tim?
Is that gonna be,
It's on the left side going north?
Yeah.
Going north?
how time consuming will that be?
On the left side.
God only knows.
Okay, we'll put it last on the agenda.
I'll ask Nell again about it, like, because you know, I always think, why let them come first? You know, like, why let them come and,
No, we'll
you know,
put them
so,
last.
yeah.
Just to bring everybody up to date very briefly. I met with Pam today to discuss a couple of things. And I took the opportunity to go upstairs to the new town manager's office to introduce myself and to speak with him. His secretary was very polite and said that he was at a meeting, his door was closed, and that she would give him my phone number with the request to call me. Never called. Leaving that aside, what I wanted to talk to him about was an inland wetlands agent. And again, the secretary was very good at providing me with, I guess, the most recent goings-on as of now. And the hang-up has been the agent will be a civil service employee, so you have to go through civil service to get a list and appropriateness and so forth and so on. And the reason it didn't happen already was because the selectmen felt that the job description and the guidelines and the requirements for the person were too sketchy, so they didn't accept it, and they wanted more detail. And the new town manager, I believe, provided them with more detail, and I have a copy of it, which I didn't bring with me, but.
A draft of the job description.
Yeah.
That civil service has to approve.
Right, and that will go before the selectmen on later this month. So hopefully, if it's approved by the selectmen, then it will go to the Civil Service Commission, and at that point, a list will be generated, and soon thereafter, maybe a hiree will be in place. So I still want to talk to him. You know, my feeling is I want him to get a sense of urgency involving this position, because we're really at a loss, because we say and allow certain things to be permitted, and people do deviate. Let's put it, be politely.
Exactly.
And I'm not, I don't see myself as an enforcement agent, and I don't think anybody wants to make phone calls, to talk about what their neighbor is doing and not doing, so, the agent will act on our behalf for that, with regard to that.
Well, also that person,
Yeah.
that person, I presume, would come to these meetings, right?
Yeah, oh, yeah.
Right, so
Yeah,
we'd have,
that was in the job
that's
description.
important,
Yeah,
because,
that they would attend meetings and
'cause-
provide reports
yeah,
and so
'cause
forth
we
and
wanna
so
turn
on.
to somebody who has like
Yeah,
some
no, that was,
real
yeah,
authority and knowledge and experience in these things,
right.
right?
Um,
Especially when it comes to the biology and ecology of it all, like,
I don't think there's anything else that's urgent that we have to talk about now in terms of violations. There's a couple of issues in the back of my mind, but
Couple weeks, Randy.
it'll be,
Get you in a couple weeks.
we have time to resolve them. All right, is there a motion, anything else?
That's all wrong today. I had full intention to knowing that Russ was out, and I just put my mind.
Well, I think it's important to stay in contact with them, but I think based on my running into the guy pumping out the sewer in front of my house, and then me meeting with Jim Rollins, on a separate issue,
I did see they replaced the culvert up in Third Bay.
yeah, they're working, so they did the whole outside of the perimeter of the lake on the off side, and now they're working their way around the lake on the sewers and catch basins that are on the water side of East Wakefield and West Wakefield and Lake Drive and all of that.
This is an actual replacement of the catch basin.
Yeah, so they're doing things.
Jackie, I'll be back at the end of June, so I would love to connect about the,
Yeah, there really hasn't been anything going on.
Okay.
Anyway, so, call me when you get back.
I will, yeah.
Okay,
Okay.
is there a motion to close?
Motion to close.
Second.
I think this, meeting was very productive.
You know what, I mean, we spent
I like it.
an inordinate amount of
Yeah,
time,
yeah.
but, this is,
Trying to shut people up.
that cove has gotta be resolved once and for all, really.
Well,
Yeah,
and
but it's
you
not
know,
a-
it's
not for
tough
wetlands
because
to do it.
it's right across from me.
Oh, my God.
I look at it. And
And
those,
it was interesting to see how many other people have rights of way, how many other lots of.
Yeah,
well, there's a
192.
lot of little houses in
Well,
More
but
than
all
you
those,
think.
yeah, they all have rights of way. It's,
You know what?
there. But I will tell you.
Right next to a gas station,
My
there's
little-
always a gas station there.
My little cove,
I maintain that.
That's some
my
fancy
little
equipment.
cove is getting very crowded.
Has that equipment
but
always been?
all
And
the
I
houses
was
are gonna
inside of
be
it.
beautiful.
You know what, you're
Between
right about
yours
that.
and yours, all the way down around.
I think it's gonna increase the